and ensure that your mobile device are switched to silent mode. We truly appreciate your kind cooperation. Thank you. Welcome to the 2026 Taiwan Sports Health and Medicine Interdisciplinary Industry Summit. 在全球运动健康还有医学快速发展的此时此刻，运动医学、运动科学还有再生医学之间的跨域整合，正逐步成为驱动健康产业创新的关键力量。At a time of rapid development in global sports health and medicine, cross-domain integration between sports medicine, sports science, and regenerative medicine is gradually becoming a key force innovation in health industry. 今天我们同聚在这里，不仅是一次专业知识的交流，更是一场连结临床实务、科学创新还有产业发展的重要对话。Today we gathered here not only for the exchange of professional knowledge, but also for important dialogue that connects clinical practice, scientific research, and industrial development. 本次的高峰论坛，我们特别邀请来自国内外的重量级专家，一起分享最新的研究成果。还有实务经验，并且从不同的面向探讨台湾如何在全球的趋势中打造具有竞争力的运动健康还有医学发展的模式。This summit has specially invited heavyweight experts from home and abroad to share the latest research results and practical experiences, and to explore from different perspectives how Taiwan can build a competitive model for sports health and medical development in the context of global trade. 在此，仅代表主办单位、辅仁大学以及辅大医学院，向各位贵宾的莅临表达最诚挚的欢迎与感谢。On behalf of the organizers, FJU and FJCUH, we would like to extend our sincerest welcome and gratitude to all the distinguished guests and speakers for your presence today. 在我们的高峰会正式的开始之前，想要先邀请所有人以最前进的心，我们一起来进行祝祷仪式，并且让我们欢迎洪万六神父来为今天的活动进行祝祷。Before our summit officially begins, I would like to invite everyone to take part in a prayer ceremony with reverence. Let us welcome Father Hong to offer a prayer for today's event.
各位长官、各位贵宾 ，honored guests， 所有的参与者，大家平安。今天我们有幸辅大主办这个高峰论坛，我想是非常有意义的。特别在天主教大学里面，我们这样的一个正是符合我们自己天主教能够创新、能够跨越不同的领域的合作。首先，让我们一起来聆听圣经上给我们的鼓励。 你们不知道你们的身体就是圣神的宫殿，这圣神住在你们内，是圣神赏赐的，你们不属于自己，因为他用高重价买了你们，所以你们要用身体光荣天主。身上启示，人的身体是高贵的，人的身体不只是物质、心理，更是灵性的，而且神也住在内，而且神用他自己圣子的宝血，使我们可以在他内得到完全的平安。所以他鼓励我们用身体，用我们的健康，用我们的医学来光荣天主。今天我们聚集在这里，不只是为了知识和技术层面，更是为了回应天主对人类健康、运动医学和跨领域的合作，正是预防和治疗的结合，让我们更能好的照顾天主所赐给我们的身体，这尊贵的圣神的宫殿。所以我们在这里寻求智慧，要成为世人身体和灵魂健康的祝福。让我们一起同心来祷告。在了天上的父，是造物的主，你在创造人类时，将运动与生命力赐给我们，也赐下智慧与医学去医治和修补。我们为今天运动健康与医学跨领域产业高峰论坛向你献上感恩。我们为合一和连结的祈祷。上主啊，求你突破医学、运动、科技等不同领域的壁垒，让今日的论坛成为连结的桥梁，让专家学者、产业界能同心合意，建立紧密的合作关系，在基督内合为一，共同为提升全民健康效力。我们为智慧和创新祈祷，恳求圣神充满每一位讲者与参与者，赐下开放和明智的眼光，让医学的严谨与运动的活力完美的结合，产生智慧的产业解决方案，让讨论不只停留在技术层面，更看到我们背后所服务的是每一个人。我们为今天论坛的宗旨和光荣来祈祷。主啊，我们在论坛里时时刻刻记得，我们所做的是在圣上光荣天主，帮助我们不仅是追求产业的发展，更追求生命的健壮，让这场论坛成为转化产业的起点，带来健康、喜乐和平安。我们将今天一切的行程、交流、互动与决定都交在这手中。我们祷告，奉耶稣名祈求，阿门。
谢谢洪万六神父的祝福。Thank you, Father.
It's more than just a conference. It's a statement of shared responsibility. A responsibility to athletes, responsibility to patients, and responsibility to society. This summit reflects Taiwan's growing recognition that sports medicine is a fundamental to public health. Science-driven movement, prevention, and rehabilitation are national priorities. When we speak of healthy Taiwan, we are not speaking only of hospitals. We are speaking of injury prevention across the lifespan, maintaining mobility in an aging society. Well, Taiwan has already entered aging society with 1 in every 5 aged 65 and above, and enabling active participation and dignity in daily life. And sports medicine provides the bridge from elite performance to community health, from treatment to prevention, from short-term recovery to lifelong well-being. And in this sense, sports medicine is not a niche discipline. It's a core to sustainable national health. As Catholic University, Furen University is guided by respect for human dignity, care for the whole person, that's body, mind, and spirit, service to the common good. Our strength lies in integration of medicine, sports science, education, regenerative, and in translational research. The establishment of the Regenerative Medicine Center and today's partnership with the National Sports Science Center reflects this commitment in research that moves from laboratory to society, education that prepares future professionals for interdisciplinary challenges. And the future of sports medicine in Taiwan must be evidence-based, interdisciplinary, and human-centered. Universities, hospitals, government, industry must work together, and Furen stands ready to be a platform for collaboration, a bridge between science and society, and a partner in advancing a healthy Taiwan. And I sincerely thank all our distinguished guests, speakers, and partners. And I, of course, wish today's summit every success, and may our discussions lead to the lasting collaboration and tangible impact. And I would like to take this opportunity to share good news to all of you. That also related to today's topic, well, a little bit. Yesterday, our soccer team won national university football competition championship. So this is that's why I'm bringing this is a championship cap. So I would like to share our happiness with all of you. So I wear this cap. And thank you. Welcome once again to Furen Catholic University. God bless you all. Thank you.
谢谢蓝校长的欢迎词 remarks by a short video.
Distinguished guests and esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Dr. Raiden Huang, Superintendent of Furen Catholic University Hospital. Due to official duties abroad, I regret that I'm unable to attend in person and would like to extend my sincere greetings through this video message. I would like to offer my heartfelt congratulations on the 2026 Taiwan Sports Health and Interdisciplinary Medicine Industry Summit. This forum brings together leading experts from Taiwan and around the world, including Professor Daniel Whelan from the University of Toronto, Professor Rajiv Ranganathan from Michigan State University, and also Professor Gina Zhang from the Hong Kong Institute of Biotechnology, highlighting Taiwan's strong connections with the global community. In recent years, Furen Catholic University Hospital has steadily advanced the integration of sports medicine and regenerative medicine, including the establishment of the Fudan Catholic University Regenerative Medicine Center and the collaboration with the Taiwan Institute of Sports Science. We hope this platform will foster meaningful exchange and create lasting impact on public health and sports medicine development. Wishing the forum great success and everyone good health and well-being. Thank you.
由于黄院长今日因公无法出席典礼，由江清泉副院长来代表院长作为主办单位致欢迎词。Since our Superintendent Huang is unable to attend
of Department of Orthopedic and Sport Medicine of Fuji Catholic University Hospital. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your participation of this important summit conference. So, I'd like to take this chance to invite our keynote speaker, Professor Daniel Hueler. Dr. Hueler is outstanding key person in the ESA course. ESA course is probably not so familiar with everyone of you. It is an international society of knee surgery, arthroscope, and sports medicine. And currently he is the head of the University of Toronto in sports medicine, and he is a very key person in Canada and leading scholars in Canada for sports medicine field. So let's welcome Professor Hueler to give us a talk. Professor Hueler, please.
Thank you so much for your kind welcome and introduction. First and foremost, I really want to thank you for inviting me to speak here. It's been an incredible journey, and it's my sincere honor and privilege to address you all at this prestigious institution. What a beautiful hospital and facility you have here. In the next 40 to 45 minutes, I hope to take you all on a bit of a journey, both my own personal journey, but also one where I've been afforded a front row seat to some of the important developments in evidence-based medicine and its introduction to orthopedics and in orthopedic sport medicine. Toronto, Ontario, and Canada in general have been a bit of a flashpoint for evidence-based medicine in general, and certainly that change has happened in orthopedics in about the last 30 years. I began my residency in Toronto in 1996, and thus I've had a front row seat to many of those developments and have been involved from the ground up. I think there's been some important changes along the way, some good changes, some not so good, but all important steps to where we are today. And I think it's important to know where we are today to make sure we can plan the future to get us closer to the truth. I truly want to thank my guides for the last few days. I've had a spectacular journey throughout Taiwan and Taipei, and I've been introduced to some great things. I was getting driven here in the car today by Dr. Luke, and he was showing me around different parts of Taipei as we drove over here. And I said, what's your favorite part of Taiwan? And I expected him to tell me, the mountains or the ocean or the coast or some part. And he said, the people. And I would have to agree. It's an extremely welcoming and inviting place, and you've all been extremely hospitable and gracious to me, so I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful to my hosts, Dr. Hung and his team, Dr. Jiang. By way of introduction, I come from the far east coast of Canada, a small province called Newfoundland, which, interestingly, is also an island, much like Taipei, but a much smaller island. But it has spectacular beauty in nature as well. It's a little colder than the rest of Canada, but has a very warm, hospitable environment and personable people. My birth city, St. John's, is actually the farthest point east on the North American continent. So it's the closest to Ireland, Great Britain, and Europe, and as such, there's a bit of a Irish heritage in that place. You may detect that in my accent, and I will try to speak as slow as I can, but I'm often a little difficult to understand. But I can assure you that my English is just slightly better than my Mandarin. So I came to Toronto, as I said, in 1996 for my residency. Far longer than I care to mention, 30 years ago now, I can't believe it. But for some reason I began cheering for the hockey team, which has been a mistake. They haven't been to the championships in well over that time, since 1967 as a matter of fact. But by North American standards, Toronto's a very multicultural city. It's a little smaller in size than Taipei, but close, about 11 million people in the entire Greater Toronto catchment area. It's spread over a much broader geographic footprint. It's the biggest city in Canada, not the capital, however, that's Ottawa, but the center for trade and commerce. And it's well known for its food scene, its restaurants, much like Taipei, and a strong devotion to sport, particularly the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team, which again has been a difficult history for me and the city. I've raised 2 sons there, and it's been a great place to raise a family. I came to London, Ontario for my fellowship in orthopedic sport medicine and worked with some very great people there. I don't know if you recognize some of these people, but this is Dr. Ned Amendola. He was the fellowship chairman at the time and is currently the president of the AAOS, American Orthopedic Association. Dr. Peter Fowler, who's since passed away, but was paragon in orthopedic sport medicine in Canada and the world, was the president of AOSSM for a time. Dr. Robert Litchfield, and this was Dr. Sandra Kirkley. Dr. Sandy Kirkley was a pioneer in the field of orthopedic sport medicine, having championed many randomized trials. She unfortunately passed away shortly after I arrived. And I saw that as a particular challenge to me to try to carry on her legacy in trying to bring forth the evidence-based movement to sport medicine and orthopedics in general. Currently, I wear several hats. I am I'm the director of the University of Toronto Orthopedic Sports Medicine Program. I don't know what happened there. Director of the University of Toronto Orthopedic Sport Medicine Program. I have an academic practice at a level 1 trauma center. I mostly focus on a very niche area of orthopedic sport medicine, multi-ligament knee injury and hip arthroscopy. I'm a team physician for the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team, a team physician in the Ontario Hockey League for several teams, which is a junior hockey league, and a consultant with the National Hockey League. So many people refer to me as a hockey doctor. In hockey, we evaluate teams and talent in 2 ways, much like baseball or other sports, I'm sure, but we say there's a group of people that can do the eye test, so they can look at a team and look at a player and say, these are the qualities I like about these players, this is the things I like about this team. It's called the eye test. And the other way that people look at things is they look at analytics, so they look at the numbers of how many goals, how many shots, how fast they play, how much time on ice, etc., how the team does with and without that player. I would say that in terms of what I'm going to talk to you about today, it's very much an analytics type talk about our track record in orthopedic sport medicine and how we've done over time in terms of our adoption of the evidence-based movement. I'm a sports medicine physician at a trauma hospital, so I tend to get a bit of a hard time from my colleagues because they don't necessarily take orthopedic sport medicine seriously all the time. And I look after a different type of athlete most of the time. In Canadian trauma hospitals, the sports that we tend to look after are things like breaking and entering, evasion of police officers, and nocturnal pharmaceutical sales. So it's a different type of athlete than many of my colleagues look after. I come from a family of surgeons, so I have actually 4 brothers who are surgeons, but 3 of whom are shown here with my mother. They often refer to our family as having 4.5 doctors, not 5, because they don't necessarily, these are all general surgeons, oncologists, etc. They don't necessarily take orthopedic surgeons seriously. And when I told them I was coming to Taiwan to give a talk on evidence-based orthopedics, they said that must be an oxymoron. An oxymoron referring to 2 things that don't go together in the same phrase. Because traditionally orthopedic surgery has relied on innovation, technical mastery, and less so on scientific method and validation. But I see it as my job to try to bring the principles of evidence-based medicine to orthopedic sport medicine, orthopedic surgery in general. So this is a picture of Dr. David Sackett. He was formative in my career. He was actually in Hamilton, Ontario, and was also the editor of the British Medical Journal and a professor at the University of Oxford as well. And Dr. Sackett defined evidence-based medicine as a conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence, married with your practice and your clinical experience to try to make decisions about individual patients. This is a movement that has been very well adopted in Canada, particularly by Dr. Kirkley, who I went to London, Ontario to work with. And I became an epidemiologist under his tutelage and Dr. Kirkley's tutelage during the course. Dr. Kirkley worked on several randomized trials. In fact, it's spectacular how many randomized trials she published in her short career and life. And I was involved in many of those, but very important trials, some of which you may be familiar with, on things like Achilles tendon tears, on things like osteoarthritis of the knee, on things like arthroplasty, etc. So pivotal person and a very important influence in my life. Evidence-based medicine has as its central tenet this hierarchy of studies. So the thought is as you go towards the top of the pyramid in evidence-based medicine, or you go towards the top of the hierarchy in evidence-based medicine, you remove bias and you get closer to the truth over time. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is to try to find answers for individual patients that are true and can be replicated and can give them reliably good results from the treatments that we offer. Over time, as orthopedic surgeons, the evidence we use to make decisions has been evolving and theoretically, hopefully, climbing up this pyramid. So we relies less on anecdote, technical mastery, and personal experience and textbooks, all of which I would argue are fraught with bias, and look more to the truth obtained from prospectively tracking experiences of many patients and surgeons in an unbiased light. This became particularly evident to me during a time when I was asked to give a talk at the Canadian Orthopedic Association. This was shortly after my fellowship, and I was asked to talk about patellar tendinopathy. Now, at the time, the year was about 2005, and I had seen some patients with patellar tendinopathy, but when I did, I rarely considered surgery for this problem. And two pieces of information had informed my practice at that time. My mentor, Dr. Fowler, who suggested that surgery was often not required for this problem, and my experience through seeing patients that if you gave them enough time, the appropriate exercise, some activity modification, they would get better without surgical intervention. So it came as a bit of a surprise to me that when I started reviewing the literature, there were many studies that suggested that not only was surgery helpful for this problem, in some cases it was 100% effective. And so that sat at odds with my own clinical experience, and I decided to look into that a little further. And there was an interesting study by a man named Dr. Coleman, who looked at the surgical success rate for patellar tendinopathy and the methodologies, how well a study was done, and found a directly inverse relationship. So the better the study, the less likely it was to show surgical success. And similarly, that over time, there seemed to be an increase in the quality of the studies that were being done, so the surgery seemed to become less effective over time. Probably not reflective of the surgery at all, but more reflective of how we conducted the research. Coleman gave a challenge to people at the time, and he said, you know, for a particular study to be effective in evaluating patellar tendinopathy, it would have to be prospective, it would have to use a validated outcome, it would have to report compliance and do many different steps. Not surprisingly, the Scandinavians took up that challenge and did a study looking at the role of eccentric exercise versus surgery for patellar tendinopathy. Interestingly enough, they reported exactly how the patients went through the study. This is called a consort diagram. It guides how patients are randomized, how patients are followed through a study. It used a validated outcome for patellar tendinopathy. And what they found was interesting. There was very little difference between the surgical and the non-surgical group. There did appear to be a group that would benefit from surgery, but perhaps a little earlier. And the trick, I would argue, is trying to identify those patients a little quicker and get those patients the treatment they need a little more quickly. And so that's the challenge here in orthopedic sport medicine, is to try to do better research to identify the groups that might benefit from surgery. Again, at the time, there were two surgeons who were very formative in trying to look at evidence-based orthopedics, Dr. Mohit Bandari and Dr. Emil Shemitz. You may or may not know these two gentlemen, but they were pivotal in forming the Canadian Orthopedic Trauma Association. And we together, as a group, as the Canadian Orthopedic Trauma Association, had it as our goals to try to evaluate the quality of the research we did, improve the outcome measures we were using, and adopt study designs to reduce bias. It was not a very easy thing to do. For many years, the surgical subspecialties of every different department, but more so in orthopedics, had been a little resistant to evidence-based medicine. Perhaps because a lot of the treatments that we offered, this is a total hip replacement, the first one done by Charlie, a lot of the treatments we offered had already been established prior to the evidence-based movement, so there was very little interest in comparison with non-operative things or with other treatments. You may think that's an historical opinion, but recently I've tried to look at the distal biceps rupture. Now, when I was an orthopedic resident, we didn't treat any distal biceps ruptures with surgery. We would usually rehab these patients and see how they did. And certainly some did come to need surgery. As I progressed through my residency, however, new techniques evolved. And now I would argue that very few are fixed by non-surgical methods at all. Most people would undergo surgery in North America for distal biceps rupture. In fact, almost 100% I would argue. But there's never been a randomized trial looking at surgical versus non-surgical treatments for this problem to merit this change. And when I present that idea to my group as a potential idea for a randomized trial that we could do, there was very little enthusiasm, as they said, no, we don't have any interest in that because we no longer have equipoise. We no longer have uncertainty that that would be a reasonable thing to put patients through. So that's just a modern day example. Another problem with trying to conduct evidence-based medicine and evidence-based practice in orthopedic surgery is that it's a technical thing. So this is a video of my son trying to learn how to swing a golf club. I would argue he still has a ways to go, but he's getting better. But surgeons are the same. Surgeons with procedures are the same. They have to learn how to do the procedures. So early on in someone's surgical career, at least in North America, they're reluctant to participate in randomized trials because they don't feel that they're at a point of mastery where they want the results evaluated that closely. And as people get further along the course of their learning curve, they perhaps are a little less reluctant as well, because they feel like they don't want their results diluted with other people who may not be as experienced as they are. So that's been a difficult thing as well, and has limited our application of evidence-based medicine. There's also the idea of commercial influence. So many times it's difficult to get funding. We go to industry to try to get funding, and industry often writes the data, which makes it a little more biased in how we collect it and how we report it, unfortunately. There's also the technical aspect of orthopedics. So we use many different implants to do the same thing. These are all different types of suture anchors that we use to try and fix things, and they all provide slightly different, subtle differences in how they're administered and how they work. So that's been a difficult problem with trying to make evidence-based medicine part of what we do on a daily basis. And then there's the whole concept of, can you actually blind a surgeon? Now, obviously you shouldn't blind a surgeon, but surgeons, by their very nature, when they do a procedure, perhaps if they know that patient is going to be involved in a study, might do the procedure a little differently, or may actually evaluate the procedure a little differently. And I've been guilty of that myself in randomizing patients and putting patients in randomized trials. To look at how we had done with this, Dr. Bandari and Dr. Shemitz at the time conducted a review of all the literature that had been published in the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery from 1988 to 2000. And they looked at specifically whether or not there were randomized trials published and how good the quality of those randomized trials were. To judge quality, they used a score called the Detsky score. Dr. Detsky, interestingly, was the Dean of Medicine at Toronto University of Toronto at the time, and he developed a score to look at studies in internal medicine. The score was based on things like randomization, outcomes, how the patients were selected, how the patients were followed, how the treatments were, follow-up, etc. What they found was interesting. So over time, between 1988 and 2000, there were actually very few randomized trials conducted in orthopedics. In fact, in the year 1991, there were no randomized, or 1990, sorry, there were no randomized trials conducted in orthopedics, and in 1992 there was only one conducted. They found that the quality was very variable. So early on, when you had few studies done, the quality was all over the map. You could see, on a scale of 0 to 100, 0 being a poorly run study, 100% being an excellent study, the best methodology you could possibly imagine. The scores were somewhere in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, and dropping as low as the 30s in the years when we had very few randomized trials done. These were some of the important randomized trials at the time. They mostly involved fracture care. And their conclusions were that there were not enough randomized trials being done, the quality was poor, and thus we should try to pay more attention to the principles of evidence-based medicine, develop collaborative groups so we could all share our common experience and our common patients groups, develop validated outcomes, and become epidemiologists, or at least involve epidemiologists. And this is a shameless plug for my own social media site, the Orthodemiologist on Instagram. What we learned was that RCTs were possible. They required vigorous planning. They always took longer than expected, and some were harder than others, particularly surgical versus non-surgical treatments. We tended to move less or more away from surgeon-based studies or surgeon-based outcomes, such as range of motion, stiffness, etc., and look more at what was important to patients, the patient experience, how much pain they had, etc. We developed several outcome measures at that time. These are all outcome measures that were developed during that period. We looked at many different types of fractures and pathologies. These are some of the important ones that came from that time. I decided when I got in practice that I would do the same review again. So we reviewed all the studies in the second period from 2001 to 2013. So the first group was 1988 to 2000. When we looked at the era after that to see how we did, what we found were that, yes, we were doing more RCTs. So this is that first data that we collected. This is the second cohort of data, okay? We were doing more RCTs, so the number of RCTs was increasing, and the quality was getting better. Those were positive findings and important steps. We used non-surgeons more often, so we employed epidemiologists, neurosurgeons, other types of surgeons to get involved in these studies. And we looked at areas outside of surgery. So we looked at drugs, we looked at non-surgical treatments, etc. We were a little better at doing that. Unfortunately, although there were very positive changes, there were some changes that were concerning. Number one was that our study size seemed to be decreasing. So in the earlier era, we were including studies with people with 200 patients and more. We were decreasing that number. We were less likely to employ other centers, despite knowing the importance of that. And we were less likely to show significance. And that's probably the most important downturn in the second period. When I tried to get that study published in JBJS, it was very difficult. I had to meet with the editor 4 times, and I actually had to fly to Boston to plead my case. And eventually it did get published in the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery, but they were reluctant to publish that because they didn't want anyone to know that these trends were happening, or at least not in their journal. These were the studies that were being published at that time. So this is a study on osteoarthritis of the knee. This is a study on ACL surgery. This is a study on Achilles tendon ruptures. This is a study on rotator cuff repair. And this is a study on shoulder surgery and meniscal tears. All of these studies have an important thing in common. They all compare surgical versus non-surgical treatment. So they have 2 arms, one is surgical, one's non-surgical. And they all failed to show a difference between those 2 treatments. Now, as a young surgeon, that was difficult for me because these were the operations I was doing: ACL surgery, meniscal surgery, rotator cuff repair, etc. And there were many, many studies being produced at the time that did not show that the surgeries that I was offering provided substantial benefit over non-surgical treatments. Why was this happening? Probably because we overestimated the feasibility of whether or not we could get enough patients. We may have overestimated the benefits of the treatment. We may have overzealous youthful investigators. We may have chosen the wrong outcomes. We may have chosen the wrong patients. And more so, what I saw happening more and more was academic promotion models did not necessarily put emphasis on times when you as an investigator were participating in a multi-center trial. They wanted you to run your own trials. And that wasn't scientific, because it was very difficult to run your own trial at one institution that could recruit enough patients and the right patients. So that was a problem. I saw it as important to join collaborative groups, and I did that at the time. And I really saw the importance of negative trials and what they could do. The point is, in orthopedics, there's a lot of noise around the signals that we try to measure. So if we were looking at a trial to look at ACL graft choice, so that's the signal here in the blue, there are many things that can influence the outcome from a graft choice besides the graft. Things like comorbidity of the patient, things like cartilage injury, things like fixation method for the graft, things like age of the patient, important, rehabilitation, how well did they rehab, whether or not they have meniscal injury, chronicity, etc. Goes on and on and on and on. And I'm not saying not to do research, I'm just saying these are things you have to consider before you get into that business and before you start a trial. And I'm guilty of all these mistakes. This was a study that I conducted myself, looking at young patients who had a first-time shoulder dislocation and being immobilized in internal rotation versus external rotation. Great study, I thought. I was very youthful. I was very enthusiastic about doing this study. We published this study, but again, could not show a difference between the two treatments because we didn't include enough patients, and our feasibility did not really merit that. With that, I'll conclude my remarks and say that I think it's important to do research, but I think you have to be very careful. I think there are some things that can go wrong when you don't necessarily plan research appropriately, and can lead to some problems with getting your message across and finding the truth. Thank you.
谢谢 Dr. Wallen 精彩的分享。Thank you, Dr. Wallen, for your insightful presentation. Please remain on the stage.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's very good sharing. So appreciate your talk. Yeah, and also welcome Dr. Zhou and Dr. Zhang. Yeah, and also because I'm not in this background, but I got some questions from our team member. I think it's quite important. So my question, there's two questions. They are related. The first question is, in recent years, is there any new evidence that's reshaping our understanding of injury prevention and also return to sport decision making? What's the most important evidence that's reshaping our understanding? And for the second question is, because we are university, they have 12 colleges. So our members, they are come from different areas, such as they are orthopedic surgeons and also sports scientists and also data specialists. So according to this emerging perspective, how can we try to collaborate in different ways? Okay, these are our two questions.
I'll start. I think the first part of the question was about, it was a separate part about injury prevention and then return to sport. So with respect to injury, I'm a clinical scientist, and I do mostly therapeutic investigations. So with respect to injury prevention, it's more of a prognostic type of outlook. Those studies can be very difficult to complete in that, you have to be able to track a broad group of patients for a long time for a relatively rare outcome. So with respect to injuries, that we hope they happen infrequently, so the events that you will see are going to be small. And you need to apply a preventative strategy to a broad group of patients so that at the end of the day, you end up with enough events to show that your interventions were either effective or non-effective. Most of the successful approaches that I've seen to that have been pragmatic trials where they have applied interventions to groups, teams, for instance, or leagues, and then use the tracking data from that particular team to look at outcomes in terms of injuries. The problem with that in North America is that there's a significant amount of resistance to using those sorts of approaches on professional or semi-professional players, because they don't really want to put those patients at risk, obviously, and there's a liability to the team and a liability to various different stakeholders for those particular players. So most of the time we have to apply these pragmatic sort of preventative strategies to adolescent athletes and younger athletes, and we don't get an understanding of how those things will be applied to more professional groups. The second question, the second part of the first question was looking at return to sport, and that's an area where I think a focus will really change. So traditionally we've looked at patient-reported outcome measures, and while those are good, they have a very significant ceiling effect, and they don't necessarily always reflect return to sport. As you know, there's a significant psychological component that goes into return to sport, and a significant age component that goes into return to sport. So I think there'll be a new focus on trying to use composite outcomes such as return to sport in addition to patient-reported outcome measures, as opposed to what we've traditionally done, or at least we've been doing, which is to look at patient-reported outcomes in isolation.
Okay, Dr. Zhou.
I think that from my point of view, that for prevention of injury, because most of the athletes, they are treated in baseball. But you know that baseball is the national sports in Taiwan. So from my point of view, that for the injury prevention, that most of the time the care provider was the athletic trainer and the team physician, of course. But what I want to emphasize is, if we want to do a real injury prevention, I mean for Taiwan right now, we need to set up our injury data set. Because most of the time, when you get the data, it's from Japan, from American, especially in the baseball. But nowadays, we do not have sufficient data as far as injury data of our Taiwan side. So that we cannot reflect the real injury status, especially in, for baseball in Taiwan. So from my side, I really want to say that if we want to do a more comprehensive but general injury prevention in especially baseball, I think to establish our own data set is the most important things nowadays, especially now it's an AI era. We can use this data to set up, especially after validation, a very useful prediction AI system to do the prevention, etc., etc. So, from my side, we can do the treatment, but that's just to manage the result. But how can we do it in advance? We need a real solid evidence data set. That's for me. I think that's the most critical things for me.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zhou. Dr. Zhang Zhongxun.
Thank you. And in our hospital, we don't treat too much athletes actually, because we are not getting involved too much in the athletics field. And in our hospital, the ordinary patients are from the ordinary persons. Most of them are the recreational athletes. That's more difficult for them to prevent injury actually, because they are doing too much activity beyond their ability actually. So for them, they always want us to advise how to prevent the injury, but I think it's very difficult for us to give them suggestion. And so maybe we have to learn, such as Dr. Zhou says, that from the athletes, the guidelines for the athletes, and then we had to modify these too difficult to achieve goal to these recreational athletes, to give them some suggestions.
Okay, I think the time is limited. I like to take this opportunity to say thank you, Dr. Weller, to bring this important concept about the evidence-based. It is very important for us to treating the injured athlete or
each patient. Yes. Yeah, thank you. I think you're ideally positioned in a place like Taiwan to pursue studies, in that you have a very captive population in an island, so your follow-up would be excellent here. And you have a group of seemingly very collegial people who would want to do something together and communicate. It'll improve your communication. It will improve your data processing and data collection. And I think it's an ideal location to think about trying to run a trial in a place like this. It'd be perfect. It's like the ultimate place to start a trial like that.
Okay, thank you all. Let's proceed to the next topic.
感谢各位专家，请先回座。Thank you all. Please return to your seats. 接下来的第二场专题演讲，我们邀请到的讲者是来自美国密西根州立大学的 Dr. Rajiv Ratnathan 来担任本场次的讲者。同时，我们也邀请福大。Next, for our second keynote speaker will be Dr. Rajiv Ratnathan from Michigan State University, and we are also welcome Associate Dean Xie Zhongyu from FJU, as well as Dr. Chen Yongzhang from FJCUH, to be the moderator for this session. Please give them a big round of applause.
Are you ready? Okay, good morning. My name is Song Yu from the Department of Physical Education, and he's Dr. Chen Yongzhang from the Furen Hospital, and then we are the moderator for this section. So I also prepared my notes, just in case I won't say something wrong about him, even though we don't like such a long time. So it's a great honor to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Rajiv Ratnathan, who's from the Michigan State University, Department of Kinesiology. And then I think our story goes all the way back to the 2010 at Penn State, when I was the first year PhD student, and then I remember he's coming back for his graduation ceremony, and then probably that's the time we first met. And then over the years, I often reach out to Rajiv with endless questions about some complex theoretical concept. And what admires me most beyond his brilliant mind is his incredible patience. And then he always take the time to guide me through all these kind of nuances of research. Speaking of research, Rajiv is always on the cutting edge of the model behavior, especially his work on the theme of model redundancy, and then still have the influential impact on our field. So I believe, or I have no doubt that we are all going to walk away with the new perspective today. So without further ado, you ready? Okay, the floor is yours.
Hear me? No, great. All right. Thank you again for the organizers for inviting me. I think one thing that I was very heartened to hear both from the president and Dr. Whalen before, is that even though this is a sports medicine conference, the idea of sports medicine is obviously broader than just athletes. And we also had this interesting panel discussion about prediction. So what I'm going to talk about today sort of covers that aspect of how can we use this idea of prediction, what can we do to sort of maybe do something different. That's sort of what I'm going to talk about. And again, if you want like a one-line takeaway from what I'm going to talk about today, it's the idea that when we're connecting individual abilities to performance, right, whether it can be predictions in terms of I'm going to talk about motor learning because that's my area, but we could also apply the same things to a different context where you're taking something about the individual or the patient and trying to predict something. What I'm going to emphasize is that we need some mechanistic insight, right? We can always do statistical predictions, but a key thing is, can we get some mechanistic insight? That's really what I'm going to be arguing for today. So individual differences are ubiquitous, right? So this is a classic study that looked at people balancing on a platform like this. So
essentially you've got somebody balancing on a platform, and this measures how long can people stay in balance. And already you can see this is showing individual data. There are some people who are right at the bottom here who can only balance for about 5 seconds before they stop. And then there are people, again, for the same amount of practice, who reach the maximum ceiling limit. These are 30-second trials, and people can stay balanced the entire 30 seconds, right? So the question is, what separates these individuals who seem to be doing incredibly well for the same amount of practice from somebody who is not able to do so? And again, this is not unique to motor learning. This is looking at the same sort of phenomenon in stroke recovery. So if you look at how individuals recover after a stroke, again, you've got huge individual variation. There's some people who are, for the same score, which is this ARAP score, which is a measure of their function, you can see that there are some people who improve a lot, some people who don't improve with, again, pretty much the same amount of practice that they're getting, but the outcomes are very different. So what do we do with these individual differences, right? So one thing is to just throw up your hands in the air and say, this is noise, people are going to be different, there's nothing we can really get from it. But I think as sort of researchers, our goal is to say, maybe there is something that distinguishes the person who's not able to recover or improve versus the people who seem to be able to do very well. And so the idea here is that we might be able to measure some factors about the individual to make these predictions. And the idea here is these predictions can be extremely useful, right? In the patient context, obviously, knowing whether somebody is going to benefit from a particular procedure is going to be a huge piece of information if we can do that well. Same thing if we are taking it in the community level. If we say, okay, this person is at risk for falls, well, that's going to be a very important piece of information. And if we now look at the workplace context, which is what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, this can save huge amounts of training, right? If you know that somebody is going to be able to learn the job really well versus somebody who's not able to do it really well, that saves a lot of time for somebody to say, okay, maybe they should undergo this training, or maybe they should find maybe some other alternative. And so here, in terms of motor learning, there's sort of extreme positions that people tend to take, right? So there's this one idea that is very common in motor learning about task specificity, right? That when you're learning, you learn something that is unique to the task, and so your ability to predict whether you're going to learn something well is how you perform that particular task the first time, right? So that's sort of this task-specific notion. So basically, the idea is, like, if I want to know how good of a baseball player I'm going to become, I need to say, okay, how good am I at playing baseball when I was, whatever, say, in middle school, right? So that would be one way of doing it. This is the sort of extreme task-specific version of prediction. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are folks who believe that these predictions should be based on sort of innate fixed quantities, right? Whether you can take cognitive things like IQ, whether you take physical attributes like strength or height or weight, or you could take even things like brain structure and say, okay, how many, what does the gray matter or volume look like? And you can make predictions from these aspects as well. And so what I'm going to do is sort of straddle the middle here and say what we would like to do, at least in motor learning, is to be able to measure a set of abilities. We don't consider these fixed for all time, but the idea is that you have an ability set, and that can be used to predict learning. And here's a very classic study from Fleischmann in the 60s that show that even the kinds of abilities that people use to predict are not fixed, right? So this is a motor learning task that they did, where initially the performance is heavily dependent on what Fleischmann calls spatial orientation. That is the ability that really determines how good you are when you start the task. But you see that the correlation for that predictor goes down with practice, which means it's important early, but as people get better, this predictor becomes less and less important. And on the other hand, if you have this kinesthetic sensitivity, this is another ability that he talked about, that has very low importance early on, but then becomes really important later. So this is the idea that when we make predictions, we can't just think of these as one fixed point in time and say, I'm gonna make this prediction. That itself can change over time. So there's lots of issues in terms of making predictions, right? So these are not obviously new, but I just wanted to kind of highlight the issue, and again, sort of relevant to the discussion about the size of the data set is a huge factor, right? So you can take something like this, again, if you plot abilities on the x-axis versus some performance measure on the y-axis, let's say that is your true correlation, which is about 0.5 here. If I have only about, say, a fourth of the sample size, then the correlation can be very wildly changed, right? You can get much more extreme versions of correlations when you're using a small sample size. The second one is about how do we measure these abilities? Again, we talked about this idea of patient-reported outcomes can be sort of very noisy in the sense that it's very hard to measure precisely, and that again has an effect on how well we can make these predictions. So again, we take the true correlation, and if I add some noise in the ability measure, which is in this case what we're trying to predict with, again, your correlations are going to go down. You won't have as much prediction. And then the final one, which I think is important, the idea of at what stage do we capture these correlations, is that there is also this effect called range restriction, right? If you're only going to focus on the elite athletes who have been there for a long time, then you might get sort of a distorted picture of what's going on. So again, you take the original correlation, and if I only filter out the people with very high abilities, you see that the correlation looks very different. And so this is, again, the main aspect of what we're looking at is when we're trying to make these predictions, there are lots of issues that go on. So what I'm going to say is that, yes, statistical predictions are great, but what we really need are mechanistic predictions. Can we get some insight into why we are able to do certain kinds of predictions? So what we looked at is this sewing task. Sewing is a very interesting task because people of all abilities sometimes have to rely on sewing. It's very ability demanding, and so being able to predict how people can sew is an extremely interesting sort of real world setting to test our ideas. And so what we want to do is we're going to make some assessments. We're going to do this, what is called task breakdown. How can we break this down to get some mechanistic insight, right? Not just can we predict or not, but can we get some insight into why we can make certain predictions, and that's our goal for what we want to do. And so for the ability assessment, again, we talked about sports as an example. There's the idea of you can measure different profiles of players on different things. Data analytics now is big, so you can create these profiles. We wanted to do the same thing for individuals who want to learn how to sew. And again, people do this for employees as well in different dimensions. And so we came up with this, we relied on old research to come up with this framework that measures cognitive abilities, perceptual abilities, and psychomotor abilities like dexterity, and see, okay, how well do these abilities predict how people can learn? So one of the nice things about this research is there's a lot of prior work that have identified the abilities for different kinds of sewing machines, occupations. And so we came up with this list from the publicly available data and made a test for these. And so what we did was, again, these are the abilities. I don't want to bore you with the list, but I'm happy to talk about it later. But we came up with a test for measuring all of these different kinds of abilities to create that ability profile. And so we measure the abilities of these people, we have them do the sewing task, and then we say, can we predict based on these abilities whether somebody can learn the task or not? And short answer is, again, this is the task. We try to look at different subtasks, so not just treat sewing as one particular thing, but say there are different operations in sewing. So can we say, what exactly is the prediction getting at? And again, I'll skip the video here for time's sake, but what we did was, yes, in one hand, you can predict the sewing machine performance based on her abilities, that is good. But what was really interesting is that
when we took the subtasks, right, which particular aspect of sewing was affected, that gave us more insight, right? So for example, we found that finger dexterity was helpful in prediction, but what we really saw is that that really helped in that alignment of fabric. That was the step that was really driving that correlation. So again, just to summarize here, what the main idea of what I'm trying to say is that we can make predictions, that's really helpful, but if we want to make change, then we need to understand what is the reason for these predictions. And that's really the key of why we need mechanistic insight and not just statistical prediction. So I think my time's up, so I'll stop there and I'll take questions.
Thank you, Dr. for your wonderful insights. 紧接着要进行我们第3场的专题演讲，让我们。
Distinguished guests here. Good morning, everybody. I am Yin Zhou Wang. I'm the VP for Academic Affair, and another affiliation is the Chief of Indigenous Student Centers. You know, there are about 596 indigenous students in Furen in our campus. Everybody knows that a lot of excellent athletes of Taiwan, they are all of the indigenous students. I'm so proud of that. Yeah. He is Dr. Chen Yuren. He's student of Professor Wei, but you look older than him. What's the problem? Huh? Cool. It's my great pleasure here to introduce our keynote speaker for this section, a true visionary who is reshaping the landscape of Taiwan athletics, Dr. Wei Shunhua. Dr. Wei is the chairman of Taiwan Institute of Sports Science, and is also the VP for Yangming Jiao Tong University. He is a leading scholar in the field of sports science and the human dynamic in Taiwan. Under his leadership at the National Sports Science Center, Dr. Wei has successfully integrated medicine, engineering, and data science to strengthen scientific training and the sports system for national teams. Let us welcome my good friend, Professor Wei.
So is anyone can help me to show my slide, please? Oh, not this one. Is it one? Oh, you got a technical problem, yeah. But anyway, let me just quick start Taiwan. So actually today I'd like to give my presentation. Topic is beyond sports, building the Taiwan's competitive sports system. Actually, my following talks were not related to science. I'm going to talk about a policy, of sports medicine, sports science in Taiwan. So actually, the sports science will play a very important role for enhance the Taiwan sports performance in recent years. But one question I'd like to ask, does the sports science provide adequate enough resources for enhancing the Taiwan sports performance? That's a question to ask. That's why I did research. So this is the picture that I like to show you with Taiwan's performance in Asia in the global stage and Olympic game. So on the left, you can see the baseline of Chinese Taipei, Taiwan. We actually did the sports performance pretty well. Actually, we are ranking the number 6 in Asia again, which is very stable. And also we ranked the top 10 in the FISO, actually university game. So also we ranked in the top 10, which indicated performance of Taiwan, Chinese Taipei is pretty stable. And we can say that it's a very successful, achievement, the sports performance in Asia, in the regional country. But let's we took a look at the right hand, the figure right there. So we can see the seating there. So that actually that in Paris, year 2024, we are ranked 35. I mean, actually it's 35, which means not less than year 20. So we actually behind a lot. So this is seating. So as you can see that there's a lot of country. This is a Chinese Taipei and 35. So before the 35, there's a lot of countries that their population and the GDP level is pretty similar to Taiwan, but they perform pretty well and better than Taiwan, Chinese Taipei. There must be a reason. So let's take a look at the details. So there's in Paris, year 2024. So we have 2 gold medals. One is boxing, the other one is badminton, which is the sports minister who got a gold medal, and 5 bronze medal. So the sports is very diverse. It's not consistent in only 2 gold medals. And there are lots of countries in GDP and population is very similar level in Taiwan, but why they perform well? What I believe, the sports system in Taiwan is immature. So there's lots of the gap we need to achieve. We need to overcome the gap. That's why I do the research. And the following slides, in a couple of minutes, I'd like to show you what I studied. So actually, as a long-term observer for the sports system in Taiwan, actually I have identified 4 key misconception, maybe the structural gap in Taiwan. The first one is support, not strategy. What does that mean? Well, actually, the sports science oftentimes we treat it as a supporting function. It's not a strategic decision making. So in the early stage, in the very beginning, they're missing. So they cannot participate in the planning for the training, or for planning for the exercise, or even the competition, the strategy making. So they treat people usually they treat the sports science as a supporting function. In Mandarin we call 运课资源, which means the supporting function, supporting for sports science. So which is a primary goal is really the primary goal is a little bit missing because they cannot attend to the very beginning to do the strategic making. The second one is the science driven and not problem driven. What is that? The science driven, because my perspective, I realize I find a lot of researchers or scientists in Taiwan. They engage with a coach and engage with a national team. They start with the science. They start with tell them about the science, emerging technology. They missing one very essential step. What the problem is. So they are not problem-driven. They start from science. This is, I think this is a misconception. This is the first step we are not doing right. And third one is data, not intelligence. What does that mean? So because we like to collect a lot of data in Mandarin, we say 情搜, which means we collect information. And we spend a lot of time and invest a lot of resources and do a lot of effort in collect the data. But data is quite important, but we need to transform the data into intelligence. Without that step, data is less impactful. So one more step we need to do is transform the data into intelligence. That's one of the major misconceptions what I identify. The last one is expert, not system. And Taiwan, actually, we have many experts and across discipline, like medical doctor, like also doctor, sports medicine, physiology, sport learning, biomechanics, nutrition. Lots of, there's so many, experts in Taiwan. But they are individual, they're silo. They cannot organize and collaborate it to become a system. That's what I mean. That's what I indicate this is misconception. This is maybe a structural gap. We need to overcome that difficulty. And this is what I believe we need to do the paradigm shift. We need to promote the Taiwan sports system. So this is a five actual component I'd like to explain. The first one is starting point. So traditionally the sports science centers so actually we like to claim we have lots of very fancy equipment, advanced facilities, but not that start point is not right. So what I believe we need to transform to a higher performance intelligence system. So the starting point, we should start from actually what problem is. We need to ask the coach, we need to ask the athlete, what problem you have, what difficulty or challenge you are facing. We're trying to help you. So identify what problem is. That must be the end point, starting point. It's the first step we need to do. The second one is code figures. So traditionally, we believe academic experts, researchers are code the figures and the system. But we need to transform. We need to transform. We need to shift. We need to shift to the coach and athlete because they are the center of the whole system. The question they ask, the challenge they're facing, are the problem we try to solve. So that's the duty, that's the obligation for the scientist and the expert, the output. So actually we spend a lot of time, we collect a lot of data, and we produce a lot of reports. But reports isn't, a report without the intelligence that's meaningless. That's why I say we need to transform. We need to transform from the data report, testing report to the action decision, actionable decision. We need to help the coach to make a right decision. We need to help coach to make the strategic decision. So the data need to transform into intelligence to help them. The first one is feedback speed. Usually, traditionally, there are many cases we collect the data and produce a report. A month later, maybe of the season, they will provide it. So this is a report for you. No, this is not right. We need to accelerate because a quick feedback, rapid feedback for them can help them to change, adjust the training program. That's the next step we need to shift. Evaluation standards. Usually, traditionally, they use the evaluation standards. We demonstrate how many athletes, how many people we collect the data, we measure their physical capability. But now I think we need to shift. We need to shift it from the traditional method to the high performance intelligence system, which means how many training program that's worked, that's improved, and what is this performance outcome that improved. That is a shift. That's a KPI. That's the key measurement. We need to identify that. And again, this is my core concept I'd like to share with you. So coach and athlete should be the put on the center of the whole system, and surrounding them should be the expert and the scientists, especially the sports scientists. So we need to integrate them with one system. So each expert, like nutrition, medical, data analyst, the psychological and physical experts, they have to solve the question raised by the coach or athlete. So, and that's one way, that's one thing. The other things, they have to, now the traditionally they work in parallel, they work individually. So the biomechanics, they work their own field. And nutritionists, the data analysts, they work there individually. So we need to work together in a very collaborative way. So otherwise, they're going to be in silo. So we need to collect it to become a one collaborative system. That's why I say this is our coach concept. So we put the coach as the center. This is a coach-centered high-performance system. And in order to achieve or enhance our sports performance get better. So this is I call this the evolutionary architecture. We need a 2 tiers upgrade. The first one, this is transformation. This is transformation. Transformation is not one step change. So we need time to transform. It's a journey. From the very beginning, they change the concept and eliminates, kill, the misunderstanding to try to build up high intelligence the platform. So this is a long journey of transformation. So this transformation, I think that there needed 2 tiers upgrade. On the bottom one, I call it a high performance integration, the platform or the system. The top one is high performance intelligence system. So on the bottom one is high performance integration. Is this? We need to create a foundation. We need to we need to move from the isolated or individual specialist into a one cross-disciplinary collaboration. And also we need to define a clear role and ensure the process Shared process means I'm going to talk about later. We need a very I need a clear workflow, and everybody works on the same page, aligned with one purpose. So this is what I call it the one system, or one purpose, is well integration platform. At top level is a performance intelligence system. So once we build up a well integrated platform, the next step we need to make it smarter. So we need intelligence. What is intelligence? We need to convert the data into the intelligence. So we need a lot of scientists, experts, they work together, use a simple plan and language to help the coach understand, to make the right decision to do the next step. What is next step? Next step is to lead to the win, to find a pathway to win. And this is the high performance, the first on the bottom one, the tier. I call it the high performance integration. There's 4 components. The first components, we need to unify the operation framework. So we need to establish a unique, simple, and harmonic and collaborative structure to align with the goal and the easy workflow. Everybody can follow with the workflow, align with one goal. And the second one is cross-disciplinary synchronization, as I mentioned earlier. So because experts, they work individually. So psychologists, biomechanics, they work individually in parallel. But what I want to do is this. I want to cross-disciplinary synchronization, which means they can work together, even offline, but they have one platform, they can convey and deliver their insights to the one page. They will have to work with simultaneously, work together. The first one is coach-centric decision-making. So again, the major role in this system is coach and athlete. We need to help the coach, empower him to make the right decision, to adjust the working load, to adjust the training program, to help them to promote the competition outcome. So again, the coach and the athlete will be the center of the system. The last one is shared performance language. Shared performance language is not that easy. And in the last section, I hear about someone expert here say that the translation research. The translation, we need to we have lots of different experts in this area, in this system, nutrition, biomechanics. Everybody has his own domain knowledge. They talk about it's very difficult term, very technical term. Nobody understands. So we have to transform. We have to translate into a very simple language. And the coach has different language. They're concerned about performance. They care about how much load we can do. How can I reduce, or minimize my injury? So the scientists, please try to translate your language in a simple, plain language to help, the coach and athlete understand. And this is this is a specialist here. There's a lot of specialists. Every time when I talk with them, I feel awkward and feel, and struggle because they like to, use their technical term to communicate with me. There's lots of jargon. So this reduces the efficiency. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm going to design a cross-disciplinary translation hub, which means there's experts who can able to understand other fields' language or ask the helper, expert, to minimize the difficulty, to give me the plain language. And final one is is that one. So based on the coach's requirements, so we can unify the performance language. I have to go very fast. Time is limited. So anyway, there's one integrator here, so we can transform the language, translate language into full category. One is load adjustment, reduce increased load exercise, and recovery strategy, and technique correction, and nutrition for people. And this is the center of in addition to the coach. The athlete should be the center, the core of the whole system. So the coach, this is the athlete here, this is a profile here. So it includes the training loads, competition tours, physical capacity, and technical execution, medical history, recovery, fatigue, and nutrition, and psychological and status. Oh, by the way, right here, that's the medical doctor, sport scientist. So medicine science like to know. We like to know what is voluntary site of the body, And please tell me, how can I reduce my injury, How can I reduce my injury? Please tell me, if I keep exercise and keep the working load, what is the minimum side? What is the weight I can tolerate? And this is the bottom, the top one, the level we call the intelligence level. So actually, this is the axis, horizontal axis is cost and risk and cost, and vertical axis is winning. So there's three things we need to do. First one, we need to identify what's the path to winning. Please help me to tell me the optimum action, tell the coach, and minimize the risk. We need a sports, the medical doctors, orthopedic doctor help me. How can I reduce the risk? On the shoulder, or knee, or the calf, meniscus injury, ankle joint, and this was maximum opportunity. So basically, this is the intelligence. We have a lot of data. We have a huge amount of data, but we need to transform data into insight and help them to create, intelligence to help the coach. And this is the workflow, identify the problem, integrate all the resources, and interpret it, use easy language, and decide. And decide, which means tell the coach, or give a suggestion, what is the strategic decision you have to make, to get winning the opportunity. And this is my conclusion. Actually, in Taiwan, and sports medicine, sports science play a very vital role in Taiwan. But when we look at region in Asia, our performance is quite good. We can say success. But in the global stage, particularly in the Olympic level, we'll struggle. What I believe our system, sports development system, is still immature. So that's why I do this. We need to do the paradigm shift. We need to change our mindset. So we need to create two tiers, but most importantly, the coach and athlete problem. That is obligation for scientists. Will help them try to solve. That's my main point. Thank you. I'm happy to answer questions.
谢谢魏董事长精彩的分享，也请魏董事长先留步在舞台上，因为接下来呢，我们要进行本场次的高峰论坛。请以下的与谈人上台入座。首先，让我们邀请 Dr. Rajiv Ranganathan， 魏淑华董事长，桃园福园领航员副领队暨发言人陈锡南先生。同时，让我们邀请运动部的黄启煌政务室次长，还有辅大医院的江健医师来担任本场次的高峰论坛主持。We will have a summit discussion, and the following speakers are invited to come to the stage and take their seats. Dr. Rajiv Ranganathan, Chairperson Wei Shunhua, Mr. Chen Xin'an, who is the Deputy Team Leader.
Inviting me as the moderator for these sessions. Before we start, I would like to say something though. I would like you people to remember me, not as the Deputy Minister of Sports today, but rather an FJU University alumni, and also a person being certified for 37 years as a certified athletic trainer. So that's important to being here as a moderator, not the sports minister in Taiwan, okay? So my name is Michael, and I thank you for inviting me. I have a down-to-earth question for you. You talk about prediction. Dr. Wei talked about the predicament and the shift of the sports science, and we have a team leader for our pro basketball team here. Injury prevention has been a long time focus or concern in the field of sports medicine. How do we do that? Injury, training load or performance monitoring has been a key way of doing it to prevent injuries. I would like to know if there's any major project or any way that you do in East Lansing, and how your athletic teams to do and to monitor their performance during training, how to monitor their training load during training, so that we can try to have the data to calculate, to tell the coach, to tell the athletes, this is what we do on the field of training, and If you don't do this, injury may happen. So I would like to know if there's a major project going on in East Lansing or even in the States that you do, and also in the future in Taiwan Institute of Sports Science. Are you going to do anything about monitoring of training law or performance to prevent injuries? Go ahead.
I can start.
Yeah.
I can start. So again, my work doesn't directly focus on injury prevention, so I can't answer that question specifically in terms of what's happening in East Lansing. But I think there's two things to kind of keep in mind. One is this is an extremely complex problem, right? So I showed some predictions of things that people can learn, etc. That's, to me, is a relatively easy problem because the main factor is practice with some measure of abilities. Injury prevention is incredibly hard. There's just so many factors out there that, they say best, and kind of joke about it, but the best way not to get injured is not to play, right? That's sort of like the usual way of thinking about it. So I think the main idea here is, I think there's a sense that we should be able to at least do better if we have enough data. So a lot of, I think the wearable movement where you're sort of like adding a lot of sensors to people, both in training and in real gameplay performance if possible. I think there is some hope that that can provide some data as to who is getting injured versus who is not. But it is just an extremely complex problem. I think we are hoping to address, but I don't know if we can be certain that we will solve that problem.
Thank you for the question. I'm very excited in the question you asked me. So also I'd like to take this stage to communicate with the doctor here. So in my knowledge, the injury prevention is quite important, but we are dealing with elite national athletes, national level. They represent Taiwan to compete in the global stage. So to me, the injury prevention, to me, I would say I like to zero tolerance for injury. So injury prevention is not just prevention. I hope the medical doctor, especially orthopedic doctor, tell me what is the training intensity that athlete can tolerate without resulting any tiny injury that we want. Because we are dealing with the highest level of athlete. So we need a doctor tell me your shoulder, your knee, your ankle, what tolerance, the maximum tolerance, the limits, as a material healing point. What is the tolerance, the maximum level we can still ask, athlete to do the training to 100% prevent the injury prevention. That's what we want. Yeah, that's what we want. And also that's why we need a one athlete, one profile. And we provide the doctor, we provide the data and medical history for the doctor. And doctor, please tell me, how can we keep continually training for the athlete? And without injury, that's what we want. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Xingan.
OK， 大家好。那我们球队应该是目前台湾篮球团队里面最多教练团的。我们有1个教练、5个助理教练，然后2个运动伤害防护员跟2个训练员。那基本上，其实我们的出发点就是因为我以前是选手，退下来，所以我知道选手非常的辛苦，一个选手的养成需要很多人的照顾。所以在我现在的这个职位上面，我希望给选手最多的帮助。那比如说，我觉得运动员的伤害其实是很难预防，所以我们在训练上，我们就把专业都分工。比如说在训练上面，我们让选手做很多最基本的训练，比如说我们是篮球，但是在篮球的热身之前，我们就让他做很多的跑、跳、转、蹲、碰撞以及稳定。那在运动伤害防护的部分，我们就是让他尽量可以做到，就是比如说每天都是例行的一个训练，然后很自然，就像比赛就是日常的生活，那避免他在比赛当中有一些不预期的事情发生，所以就是让他每次在比赛的时候都可以知道他要做什么，那也避免他的运动伤害去产生。那当然在每个比赛之后，他们现在的运动员非常的幸福。 我们球队有2个运动伤害防护员，所以他们训练完之后就会去筋膜放松、筋膜治疗。那我想说那个背后的这些训练团队也是非常的辛苦。那如果不预期，当然这个运动伤害还是会有不预期的发生。那我们球队就会回到福大医院。对。
I have a short question for Mr. Chen. As Dr. Rajiv and Wallen here, I just make a brief introduction for Mr. Chen. He's very famous, not only a manager of basketball team, but also a famous basketball player and such as an icon for my generation. He's the first basketball player to broke the barrier from Taiwan to NBA team, and really famous in this generation. And I have a short question. There are some technologies for current training system, like some isokinetic system and some like even combine AI for motion analysis. And as you are a retired basketball player, how do you see these technologies for the future help for the Asian athlete?
应该就我的经历到现在，运动科学跟运动医学跟现在的体育已经息息相关了，是密不可分。那我除了是篮球选手之外，其实我个人私底下也很喜欢打高尔夫球。那像很多的我们自己的选手，篮球选手会在每季休赛季到开赛季之前，我们做很多的肌力的测试。那当然，我们不是只有1位选手，我们有16位选手。那在团队的运动表现，我们就会把这16位选手的成绩能力分布出来。就比如说谁的跑最快，谁的跳最高，那谁的碰撞能力最好。那有了这些的测试之后，我们希望可以在运动科学在未来更息息相关的辅助到我们的运动表现上。那这个也是我们球队一直努力在做的。那回到了职业运动，有了运动科学的数据之后，我们就会运用到运动表现上，把对的人放到对的位置上。比如说跳最高的就去抓篮板，跑最快的就去maybe 是快攻。那反应最好的，那他就去当后卫，去做出一些球场上帮助我们运动表现的最佳优势。对，那这其实，在很多的运动产业，其实都已经在这个运动科学有很多的运用。比如说像我喜欢打高尔夫，就举例一个最简单的技术面好了，高尔夫有很多的技术面。那篮球其实亚洲人他每个人的手长跟西方人的手长不太一样。那像我们有很多的测试的应用，现在大部分的数据应该都还是比较偏西方的。那也希望未来有机会，是不是我们亚洲人有这个数据可以应用到我们的运动表现上
？According to the time limit, so let's close this section and thanks for all the discussion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, to the moderator of this session, and also I'm very happy and honored to introduce Dr. Zhou Wenli. Dr. Zhou Wenli is an active member in our Taiwan sports field, and he also the team physician of professional baseball teams in Taiwan, and he's been a team physician to the Olympics and also to the Asian Games. And he's also a good friend of mine, and he has many experience in treating the athletes. And let's give him a warm welcome, Dr. Zhou.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks, moderator. I suppose we should keep it in English or in Chinese. I think all the foreign guests are still not here right now. But it's okay. Let's go on the previous design. Let's go in English. Because in case the foreign guests will know about me, so I would like to do the brief self-introduction.
I'm Dr. Zhou from Gaocheng Memorial Hospital. I specialize in shoulder and elbow knee surgery, also specialty surgery and shockwave study and comprehensive sports medicine care. And so far I'm serving as associate professor in Gaocheng Memorial Hospital, and also the team consultant for the Chinese Professional Baseball League and National Sports Champion. And I also serve as a national team physician in Olympic, Asian Games, WBC, and the Premier 12 University, and I also serve as a medical director in WBCQ and the Premier 12. Okay, because we have limited time, so we have to figure out actually who are we, who am I? I think, yes, we are a team physician. Who is a team physician? Most of the time we should be the leader or coordinator of the team, a medical team. And in the medical team, orthopedics, rehabs, Chinese medicine, internal medicine doctor, athletic trainer, physiotherapist, and the psychiatrist, and the nutritionist, etc., etc. In the medical team nowadays, it should include all the experts in the medical in this field to provide our the best service for our athletes. Yes, our mission is to ensure the safety of not only the athletes, but the delegation members. In my personal experience during the games outside of Taiwan, we treat not only the athletes, but sometimes we have some kind of incidental event in the event, so that even the delegate member get injured. Yes. And we also did the on-site injury assessment and the intervention course. And finally, we want to optimize performance and help athletes return to play. And this is the study from a AA minor league team. The most common medical disease in the team are URI, upper respiration infection. But the sports injury are 8 times than the medical disease. The first one is contusion, followed by the sprain, operation, strain, etc. The highest proportion of shoulder is the shoulder injury, followed by the knee injury. And the most important thing is, more than 80% of injury are musculoskeletal disorder. That's why the team physician should have the MSK knowledge and the skill to deal with all these problems. And especially when we're talking about front line, which means we're in the sideline. We are on the side of the competition happened. And in the sideline, we are the doctor, just like in the doctor in the ER. But with the sports medicine concern, we need to have our basic surgical skills, such as reduction, such as wound repair. And this all include in my personal experience. I will show you later. And of course, to share, to do the decision making. Athletes stay or leave. And in the overseas competition, you also like to be like a family physician. You got to deal with the internal medicine problems. You got to deal with the diarrhea, the vomiting, the fever, something like that. Yes, we need to also have the basic internal medicine knowledge and surgical skills, and adjust to the changing environment. For example, this is in 2018 Asia Games, Jakarta. The building looks nice, but as a team member, you have to deal with not so friendly environment, especially like this. You're gonna stay here for 3 weeks, so you need to be patient and you need to take care not only athletes but yourself. And this is in Tokyo Olympic, and Dr. Ling also served as a team doctor, and this is the era of pandemic. So we also need to protect self and to adjust to the environment that we're dealing with. And our core responsibility, especially in the silent perspective, we need to do the pre-event preparation, participation evaluation, injury risk screening, emergency action plan. And this is the picture where I take in the WBC qualify in Taipei. And this is the pre-game a conference to let everybody know to do the emergency evacuation when the athlete has a medical emergency. We need to do the on-field coverage, immediate injury assessment, decision-making, stay or return or remove, acute management, of course, bleeding, fracture, concussion, etc. And post-event care, the image and definitely the diagnosis, rehabilitation plan, and the return to play decision-making. Availability, yes, you should be there. You should be stay with your athletes during the competition. Availability and ability. But I want to share my personal experience in when you're in a team position, you have to know you're in a single sports tournament or a multiple sports tournament. For example, WBC is a single sports. Olympic or Asian game is a multiple sports competition. As a role, you should be a specialist physician. But in the multiple sports, you should not only the specialist physician, but the journalist and coordinator. You focus in a single sports, you focus on sports-specific injury. The number of athletes are less, not so many. And yes, you should be more familiar with the athletes that you care. But in the multiple sports injury, multiple sports competition, wide spectrum injury types. You get a karate, you get a sports, you get basketball, you get many types of sports that you will have to deal with. So you are not, sometimes you are not so familiar with the athletes, and will be more time consuming, and in the decision to make the return to play will be more, sometimes will be more conservative. But when you're in the sideline, or when you're in the long-term care, it's different. If you're in position in the sideline, of course, you deal with the acute care, emergency decision. But if you're in the long-term care, like a team position, to care this team for over and over years, yeah, the continuous care, chronic injury management will be the main role. And the priority is different. In the sideline, safety and immediate decision. In the long-term care, recovery, prevention, optimizing performance is our mission. For the management, acute trauma management. For chronic, maybe you can injection, even surgery, rehab, etc., etc. So you have to know who you are. We are in a single sports, multiple sports, or in the sideline, or in the long-term care. That will be different. This is one of the clinical scenario. It's my first time as a team physician in the multiple sports competition, 2013 Asia Youth Game. When I just arrived in the athletes village, I was informed there's a multiple player. He got an active nasal bleeding. Initially, I think nasal bleeding is not a big deal, but I said almost more than 300 cc. It's out of my imagination. I thought that all the injuries should be like a fracture, dislocation, something like that, but I come out with the active nasal bleeding. That's why it become my innocent face. This is my first time as a team physician. The first night, I brought the player to the polyclinic. They put on an IV to make a fluid supplement in case hypovolemic status. Yes, and this is the rush hour. Almost in maybe from 6 to 12 p.m. it will be the rush hour in our medical room. And in preparation nowadays, yes, we should prepare the medical kit, suture, spring, the equipment, something like that. Nowadays we have with ultrasound, and even now we have some kind of the portable X-ray machine to do the fracture detection. Yeah, of course, the shockwave machine and the so many facilities that can help us athletes to do the faster recovery. We need to communicate with coach, athletes, and the competition host. And we need to do the environment assessment in the hot weather, in the cold weather, the moisture, and we have to deal with the travel or fatigue or even the jet lag. And this is the shockwave machine that we brought from 2014. Initially, it's a radio shockwave, and with the ultrasound, and now we have the laser acupuncture. And nowadays, we have the radio and the focus shockwave to do the on-site treatment. And we also need to utilize the advanced image facility provided by the organizer. Like this is the MRI in Paris Olympic. Initially, I thought there would be less resolution quality, but actually it's fine. So we can have a very clear identify the lesion of our athletes. So I think because this is Olympic, so you'll be high level, but I suppose you should be in a standard equipment, not only in Olympic level, but also in Asia. And that's why I say I have to deal with, this is one of the delicate stuff. They cut his finger, so we need to do the repair at the medical room. We just do the sprinting for our athletes because of a fracture. And we have to deal with the laceration. And he told me that he was hit by this guy, like David Ortiz, but this is rugby game. And he got a laceration on his chin. When we are dealing with the laceration in the competition, I always be aware of the deep soft tissue injury. In this case, as you can see, it's just a very tiny puncture wound. But he complained that his toe cannot move dorsally. They come out with the extensive tendon tear. So I transferred to the hospital and to do the repair again. So when we do the silent decision making, we have to know, I have to classify it A, B, C, D. Immediate transportation, remove from the competition, withheld from the competition, and assess for the possible return to play, or it can directly return to play. For the silent decision making, the first priority is to protect our athletes from the further injury. So as long as we get the major injury like a long bone fracture, the player should be withdrawn from the game. So we have so many rules to help us to differentiate, got a fracture or not. If you got a fracture, you need to take an X-ray. And sometimes it's easy to say, we're gonna take X-ray in the city, but in the real world, in the competition. For example, I still remember there was the time that the karate competition just along the border of the South Korea and the North Korea. It's not easy to get the X-ray or the hospital facility at that time. So when you want to do the X-ray, you have to think about it. It is really necessary. That's why we need these rules to help us to make decision to take X-ray or not. And nowadays we still have the facial fracture because of baseball hit. 这个你帮我把从中后半段放一下，会比较快。在后面一点好了。Okay. Oh, severe injury. And this is it's not common, but it happened. It's common in the real world. It's one of the patients. Come out with the X-ray, patella alta, meniscus tear, patella tendon tear, cruciate ligament tear, MCL tear, patella tendon tear. Severe injury because of just a sprain like that. So, of course, this is the treatment at the hospital side. But when you're a sideline, you have to know, even maybe just a sprain, it can be severe as these cases. The next step is, the next one is class B, removed from competition, and class C. Maybe it can return to play after the treatment or after your assessment. But sometimes these two types are a little bit not easy to identify. This is one of the scenario in WBC 2017. The most influential player is an outfielder. He got most home run in that tournament. He got a right sprain when he's sliding to the second base. He got acute middle side hematoma, swelling, and after the base is sliding. And he said, I'm good, but I know that he got the injury of the MCL. Now here comes a question. Can you play or not? He's the most influential player. He's at number 3 or number 4, I forgot, sorry. But he did very well. So I do the tapping in about 3 cc fresh blood. And after the well tapping, he finished the competition, even the whole tournament with the injured MCL. But usually, when you got an MCL injury, you should be suspended or you should be restored from the competition. But in this case, he's doing fine. So, although we got 8 principles, you have to do the decision sometimes by case, and that in different circumstances. And this is scenario 2 in the Asia game. Jakarta, a rugby player. I was informed that he got an ankle deformity being hit by a Japan rugby player. Like this, and like this. Completely deformed. Yes, ankle dislocation. Of course, class A, it should be removed from competition. You see, he cannot barely move his toes. And poor distal circulation. He come out with a subtalar dislocation. Eventually, I do the reduction for him in the angio room because the orthopedic doctor on duty, he cannot do he tried, but he failed. I say, can I give it a try because I'm also orthopedics. So this is my hand. Because the thing happened almost around the end of the Asian game. I want to go home. I cannot almost stay there anymore. So I said, I will try. But luckily, I did it. And after that, it's fine. So return to play is the most critical thing in the sideline. How to make decision. We have to assess about the pain level, function, risk of worsening injury, and game importance. Of course, the ethical issues and athlete safety and always superior than the competition outcome. We can do the functional progress test to make sure it's a safe return to play. Okay, this is the final last 2 or 3 slides. In the clinical pro, the first one is participation is critical to do the injury prevention. Communication is sometimes more important than the diagnosis. We have to build the trust between among the coaches, players, and the medical staffs. And the conservative treatment, but first, of course, but decisive. In the future, this is my ideal medical team to support the best team in Taiwan. For the single sports, for multiple sports like this, we need to the surgeon, the medical doctor, trainer, the physio, psychiatrist, nutritionist, and the sports scientist, etc., etc. For equipment, I think that in the era, we needed support from the AI technology, like high-resolution ultrasound can help to do the early detection or the warning of the injury, the X-ray machine, something like that. And this is one of our very famous catcher. We got a fracture of the metacarpal, but it's not easy to detect on site. But we need to do that in advance. And this is portable X-ray or the ultrasound that we can use to detect the acute injury. In the future, AI for the injury prevention, silent medicine, we will need some advanced equipment and a stimulation for Taiwan, for the Taiwanese player, for the specific protocol, and we need cooperation with our local conglomeration. And thank you.
谢谢周理事长非常精彩的分享，也请理事长先留步在舞台上。接下来呢，我们要进行下一场高峰论坛，有请以下的预谈人以及论坛主持人上台。首先是我们高一附一的骨科周博熙医师，再来是长庚医疗体系的运动医学总召集人林银洲医师，再来我们有请台湾运动医学学会的周文义理事长。同时呢，我们这个场次的主持，我们想要邀请多伦多大学的 Dr. Daniel Wellen， 还有辅大医院的叶秉君医师来做主持的工作。Next, we will have a summit discussion. We would like to invite the following speakers to come to the stage: Dr. Zhou Boxi and Dr. Lin Yingzhou and Chairperson Zhou Wenyi, who will also be inviting.
And we are very happy to be here. So let me start. It's my honor to be introduced three of the most experienced and respected physicians in Taiwan team. They are not only a pioneer in Taiwan sports medicine, but also a role model in our younger generation of physicians who aspire to work in sports medicine. So first, we'd like to introduce Professor Zhou Boxi. He's come from Kaohsiung Medical University Hospital and the chairman of orthopedic surgeon. And he's a very accomplished orthopedic surgeon and academic leader. And with a great contribution to the clinical practice and medical education. The second, I would like to introduce Lin Yingzhou, Dr. Lin. He is a famous, he's the most loved for the elite athlete. Elite like to search for medical opinion for him. He is a senior specialist in physical rehabilitation and physical medicine and rehabilitation in Chang'an Memorial Hospital. And he also has extensive experience in caring of elite athletes in Taiwan. The third is Dr. Zhou Wenyi, Zhou from Kaohsiung branch of Chang'an Memorial Hospital. He is prestigious with medical sports injury in treating professional athletes. He also had a long-standing involvement with a professional team in Taiwan. So we would like to. We also truly appreciate Dr. Williams' insight. I would like to bring you into our conversation. Do you have any comment or question for our panelists?
Yeah, I greatly enjoyed your talk. I would say that one of the more difficult situations I've been in is a lot of times I am an independent physician as a representative of a player group, the National Hockey Leagues Players Association, or as part of the World Cup of Hockey, which is often played now in Canada and Toronto, and I'm often a physician that's asked to go on behalf of the NHLPA. In those situations, I've encountered difficulties where I have seen an injury or I've encountered an injury to a player. I've made recommendations based on that injury, and the team physicians may or may not agree with the course of action of my decisions. How do you, as team physicians, approach those conversations? I can tell you there was one specific incident with a Russian hockey player who had a basal skull fracture, diagnosed on CT, and the team physician wanted him to play in the final game of the tournament. And I suggested that would be tantamount to malpractice. And I had to get a neurosurgeon involved from our hospital to forbid him from playing, but they would have let him play regardless. Just wondering how you deal with those situations.
I think that key man always asks the key question about that. especially in this high the top competition level. It got so many money. It got so many money because of the competition. So of course, someone want him to play. Someone started to suggest maybe he should be hold, right? But for me, I think that my personal experience, especially the general manager, for my personal experience, just my personal experience. Maybe you got a 3 or 4 physicians in one team to do the recommendation, surgery or not. But among these 4 physicians, there will always be one doctor that would get the most trust from the GM. I think that this guy maybe make the final call. So, yeah, sometimes I play this kind of role. I know that because when the player come to me, he said, "Oh, I got experience, I got an opinion from the other 3 surgeons." Some say yes, some say not. But sometimes I would make the decision, and after that, after agreement from the players, I would directly talk to the general manager or to a coach to tell you why I make this decision. Because sometimes the coach, coach make the final decision, right? So I directly connect to the coach instead of, the message to the athlete trainer and the trainer to the coach. That would be different. That was yes.
More and more times in North America, what I would agree was the athlete and coach should be involved in the decision-making process. A sports agent gets involved in making decisions, and that can be very difficult. They have very little education with respect to injury, and they have secondary gain. Do you ever have to deal with that with your athletes?
Actually, I got a very good connection with the sports agent. That's very important. It's also important. So that's why I sometimes make decision after discuss with the agent, but I try to convince them why I made this decision. Yeah, because medical issue is always an expert issue. It's not just a political or business concern. It should be an expert opinion. So once you get a good connection with the agent, you need to convince them why you do that.
I think on that situation, maybe if it's vital, it's so dangerous, life-threatening, I think the law problem maybe comes in view that we can write down in words in the paper and have them sign that I will guess the acid to go back is so dangerous, it's class 1, and if you want to then go back, you will be in charge of all the lawsuits. And go ahead, sign it. So that's
we did all those things, so we wrote an affidavit and we said we absolve ourselves of any responsibility if the player chose to play. In the end, the player did not choose to play, but they were perfectly willing as a society, or sorry, as a Congress from that country that they were willing for the player to play. So it became a very difficult problem. Yeah.
But sometimes we actually deal with a more subtle problem, such as if the patient or the athlete got injured, like you diagnose it's an ACL tear plus an MCL, and we know that's a no-no to go back, right? But the coach sometimes insists on taping and then go back. So that's some of the trouble that we have to negotiate or talk or communicate with the trainer and the coaches to let them know it's dangerous.
The difficulty in that particular situation, I was a Canadian physician and I worked with the Canadian team, and their team was scheduled to play Team Canada, so that they thought that I had secondary gain in mind by trying to keep the player out.
I think the health and the well-being of athletes is the first priority. So I think in any condition, we think this first. Yeah.
Okay, I have a personal question for our panelists. For our younger generation of physicians like us, do you think I think we'll build a connection to international team is very important, right? So in Taiwan, do you think do you have any experience, or maybe you have some suggestion for us? Maybe we can work on this field and promote sport medicine and let our Team Taipei or Team Taiwan be better in the future.
You're talking about how to encourage us, how the young generation can be involved in this field, right? I think the most important thing is the passion. You need to have the passion. I really mean it. It's not just a saying. I really mean it because you have to deal with so many frustrations during the process. So much frustration. So many difficulties they deal with because, for example, the diagnosis you made would be not accepted by the coaches or the players. They refuse, they deny. You got frustrated, disappointed. How can you get over with this issue? You gotta have a burning desire. You gotta have a passion. Even though you have difficulties, but as long as you're doing the right thing, yes, you can do it right. But passion is more important. Of course, not to say about the medical skill and medical knowledge. That's the fundamental. This is the fundamental. This is the foundation. Is you really need to enrich or broaden your knowledge. But I think the passion is the most important things.
To add on that, I think passion is definitely important, and also we also need a good mentor. And do you know what the three of us have in common? We all come from the same medical school, and we have a great teacher. Our great teacher showed the slides that how he became a team physician, and he went to the Asian Games and to the Olympic Games. And I think all the classes just admire him. So that's our role model. I think a mentor is important, the passion, and also you have to engage in the sports society, nationally and internationally. And internationally, you can find a good mentor also. Go on as a training scholar or a fellowship, any program. I think Fuda is doing a great job under Professor Jiang.
And also, I think attitude is very important. I think athletes first. Just allow me speak in the Mandarin because I think it's more clear. 我觉得态度很重要啊，因为以现在的这个趋势来讲，我相信未来这个我们一定是要秉持着这个运动员第一优先的这个考量哦，所以其实运动部成立以后，那其实我们的部长自己是运动员，所以其实很了解这个运动员的需求。所以我觉得大家如果有心要参与在这个运动医学领域的话，其实我觉得时时刻刻可能需要这个考量的优先顺序可能都要调整，就是说很多事情可能要把运动员摆在第一优先考量，不管是后勤的团队，不管是运科的团队。那我觉得我自己的经验是我其实我当初推坑我下运动医学领域的这个人坐在那里。Michael 老师，那这20几年来，其实我每个礼拜还是就是会拨空去做国家训练中心看运动员，对，就每个礼拜从1999年开始到现在，几乎没有什么间断。那其实我本身是全心全意投入在照顾运动员这个领域啊，所以我相信如果有心这样做，我相信未来大家都可以做到你想这个达成这个目标。对，谢谢。
Thank you. Because the time sensitive, allow me to close the section. Give a big clap to our speaker and Dr. William. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. 谢谢各位与谈人，请各位先行回座。接下来是我们今天的最后一个专题演讲，让我们邀请来自香港生物科技研究院的院长 Dr. Gina Zhang 来做我们这一个场次的讲者。同时，在本场次呢，我们将邀请 辅大医学院的廖俊厚院长以及辅大医院的王俊亮医师来担任主持人。Next, we're going to enjoy the last but not least final keynote speech today, and the speaker is Dr. Gina Zhang from Hong Kong to be our final keynote speaker. And we are going to invite the Vice Superintendent Liao Junhou and Dr. Wang Junliang from FJCUH to serve as moderators. Please give them a big round of applause.
Get here. And thousands of years ago, our ancestors find solution to our pain, to our disease in nature, such as this is an ancient Chinese, very like our ancestor that go out and tasted the medicine and the nature to find cure. And then of course in the Western world there's the witchcraft. If you have disease, you ask for the God, you ask for heaven, and you do all kinds of wizardry to find solution. So we came a long way. So just 100 years ago, if we move from witchcraft to seeds of medicine at the beginning of the 20th century. So it was an era of transitioning from medical dark ages to the age of reason. So in this era, if we know it's still being used today, is the birth of aspirin. So aspirin was born during this time. And then moving forward during the wartime, the World War I and World War II, one of the major things, as I'm also an alumnus of University of Toronto, at Toronto they discovered insulin. So it was the era between the World War, pharmaceutical industry leaped from laboratory to large-scale industrial production. So that's when we found out, oh, it's not just you go out to the nature to search for cure, you found that you have cure within. So this is also another era for penicillin. So moving forward with the evolution. And then further, in the 70s, right a little bit before I was born, it's the golden age of antibiotics and molecular discovery. This is key because this is when we start seeing DNA. This is when we start, that's when the microscope came out. You start seeing what you naked eye cannot see in the world. You start seeing what's in the cells, and as well as the DNA, as well as the recreational use of drugs. That the drug is no longer just for disease, but also for enhancement or for social reason. And then, of course, there's also lesson learned by moving too fast with this excitement, which is this drug. I won't pronounce that name, but it is a drug for pregnancy sickness that you take them too fast and they realize the baby born without limbs. So that, also push forward the regulation on when you have a discovery, when you move too fast, there needs to be a guardrail. So for those who know, there's a pictures you can see here, like all the excitement through the 70s. And then from the 80s all the way to pretty much today, with you start seeing the cells, you start having regulation, and all those IT technology all came out during this time. So this industry entered the stage of designing drugs, designing within our drugs, and computer genetic engineering become core tools. So over there is a picture of what I'm going to enter the topic of today, which is the architect of living medicine, taking our own cell to cure ourselves, as well as improve our quality of life and all that. I specifically named the title as Architects of Living Medicine, Building the Future of Cell Gene Therapy and Regenerative Medicine, because as we just saw the history, this is the way, the future that we are going, which is regenerative medicine, using our own cure. We are our own medicine ID. So, as mentioned, because of the topic, I think I fit right into interdisciplinary crossing field and how to implement such a futuristic execution of idea to reality. So just a quick background of this Hong Kong Institute of Biotechnology. We are part of Chinese University of Hong Kong, 香港中文大学, and We are known for having GMP, good manufacturing facilities, for the production of human healthcare products that can be approved by international FDAs. So I will definitely talk about what GMP is. It is a great centerpiece of today's talk. So why would a university want such a facility? So as mentioned, like medical innovation is moving very fast. We are entering the era of living medicine. So the whole point of having a GMP facility is to be that bridge, be the translator between the university, which is where the benchside work happens, research, to the hospital where the bedside clinical work happens. So having the GMP, this is where we produce those cells that is safe enough to put into human. And why cell gene therapy? Besides the very quick history I just went through, there's a huge market potential. And by market potential is because the money usually follows where the innovation and trend and most importantly human need are. So this is already an outdated 2022 data that there's a prediction of cell gene therapy market size to surpass, right now it's already well over $100 billion by 2030. And this is data from last year that there were a lot of merger acquisition or IPOs from Chinese companies, US companies, Europe companies, and Japanese companies working in the field of cell gene therapy being acquired, being able to get a lot of fund to develop their products. So I want to walk through this again because it is very important, the pathway. Why do we even need that? Or how do you achieve that level of acquisition? It's because during drug development, like we talked about how to move from bench side to bench side, but there's a process. The process is there's a research which happened in the university, and then there's a development once you find something that has a true unmet clinical need, and you move through the development to ensure that yes, indeed, it's a true medical need and it has a market potential. So you go down to the regulatory and you want to go from bench side to human. So there's a clinical trial design, and that is where the good manufacturing practice is required. And why is that? It's very simple. Anything you want to put in, just think about yourself. You want to at least make sure it's safe. And then second is you want to make sure it's effective. 要安全又有用. So you are able to put it in not just anyone, like just being empathetic, just putting anyone, you need to be safe and effective. So this is whether GMP comes in to push forward the clinical trial phase. The phase 1 is to make sure it's safe. Phase 2 is make sure it's effective. Phase 3 is make sure it's safe and effective in a large population. And that is only when you go through that, you can think about commercializing the product to benefit the wide population. So good manufacturing mentioned GMP. It is not a research lab. It is a regulation required by law for clinical grade studies, as well as later in commercial. And what it is, I always say it's just quality, safety, consistency, and traceability. If there's nothing you remember about GMP, just think of these 4 words. It's quality, safety, consistency, and traceability. 安全，而且可以一直复制，如果出错可追溯的一个安全品质保证。So here there's another term before the funding start. PICS, Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme. This, I would call it an international language when you talk about standard. That it is a harmonized GMP, because there's a lot of different grades of GMP. This is a GMP language that among the members that are in this scheme, that means our quality follows the same standard, we can talk to each other. So the harmonized GMP is a facility approved. If it's approved by one PICS member, it's likely to pass inspection of other members. What does this mean? that once you have a licensed facility, product made from this license can go abroad, can go to 56 countries. Taiwan也是 PICS 的会员. So this is so getting that PICS GMP certification allows you to go abroad, allows you to make a product international. And another is, of course, when you speak the same language, when you're on the same table, you get global credibility, faster market approvals, and ultimately reduce the cost in going through the pathway. Okay, so we talk, since it's today's trying to draw some analogy from like what we did to this up and coming 辅大再生医学中心. So here are some lessons learned. So how do we get here? Actually, because if we start with hematological disease, this leukemia, this is a story that we must know. That is the Emily Whitehead. She is the first patient to receive CAR-T clinical trial in a clinical trial in 2012. And right now she's a UPenn University student, so meaning that she not only cured, the CAR-T not only cured her disease, but she successfully grew up and is living a wonderful university life right now. So later on, that clinical trial in 2012 and 2017 became a product approved by FDA. It is the first CAR-T product that is being approved. So what happened in Hong Kong was in 2018, the first approval was 2017, so in 2018, the regulatory agency in Hong Kong started drafting, how are we gonna regulate this thing? And in 2019, the Legislative Council started drafting, how are we gonna put it into law? And then 2020, both regulation and law implemented. And I came into the picture in 2020, so we started from nothing. We started designing the quality system, including the facility. And in 2021, we built the place, and of course we had an opening. This is the first ATP means Advanced Therapy Product, also known as Cell Gene Therapy Center, is opened, and of course supported by not the government, industry, and academic across the board. And then in 2023, we went to our collaborator in Edinburgh, have personnel training. Earlier I talked about personnel. The heartbeat of the whole thing is the people. Having the right knowledge and being able to bring cross-disciplinary people together to work together. So we went over there, including myself, get trained. And in 2025, last year, the director of the place came to our center and then really did a mock audit of the place, and we are very pleased to know that we have indeed aligned with the international standard here. So in 2025, in 2024, we started the first human clinical trial using the CAR-T made in our facility. We achieved the license also in 2024, and then we started the first human clinical trial later that year. And then in 2025, the patients participated in the trial, achieved 6-month status and full remission, and meaning that the quality of the cells made in CAR-T cells made in this facility works for these patients. So what we have done, building this facility, local manufacturing, simplify logistic and fast turnaround, and most importantly, bridging that living medicine from lab to patient within, shortening the time by 50% or more. So here I just want to show a quick video of the place. So you can envision what this place may look like in the future. grasp this line, that idea is not enough. Idea time execution, that's innovation. So whatever that's going to happen here in the future, execution is actually 90% or 99% of the work. So 0 to 1 is 6 years. So this is obviously, people talk about passion, but I think determination is also the thing. Does the management, does the government, does the industry, does the people have that determination? If so, everything can be done. So because of time, I think I'll just skip through this boring stuff. Also, some images to show is that with a facility like this, it's actually a team, a cross-disciplinary team of a clinical team. We work very closely with the clinical team, our GMP team, so we have regular meetings to discuss the gap and how we can connect with, because especially with cell gene therapy and regenerative medicine, living medicine, logistics is actually the key of success. So how do we make sure that the product made here connect to the patient right away? So we need very close communication with the clinical team. And these are just some pictures showing the process that happened in our facility. CAR T, it's fresh cells, 14 days, going out of our facility to the clinical site, which is Children's Hospital. This was the first case for advanced therapy product in Hong Kong, the very first case. And the delivery guys here with the package, do all the verification. This is when the nurse hooked up the CAR T cell made from our facility and started infusion. So the turnaround time, as mentioned, because of having this kind of setup, we're able to achieve very fast turnaround and very quick delivery to the patient of these innovative medicine. So of course, being a university setting here, training current and future talents are also key, because we have that platform. We are able to provide a training site for the students, for the professionals to upgrade their skills, as well as, this is our team, as well as, of course, partner with different sectors to secure big fundings. I think this is also a key thing. Lastly, I do want to mention that everything starts with the patient. So start with empathy, 始于同理心, and work together. Put down the egos, work together. 齐心引领，先进治疗，迈向全球. Because living medicine like ATP, our manufacturer and the patient's distance is not that long anymore. And everything that's made in our hand actually go inside the patient. So we have to always keep empathy in our heart. Also, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Don't wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gina Zhang. Now, we are going to proceed to the final summit panel discussion. Let us invite Dr.
to this conference, and it's my pleasure to be here. I did the blueprint of Taiwan the regenerative medicine. I have 3 core parts. First is the stem cell, and also the fused with the gene therapy. I think that most of people like the previous, like the Jordan Yamanaka Sensei, the IPS. You can use the IPS to further develop the new product to treat the patient, and also like the Professor John, the CAR T. Like I said, CAR T is the current very advanced gene therapy for us to cure patient. And the second one, I think that maybe we can use the 3D printing open, we can later to produce the heart or liver or kidney to from the single cell, and maybe we can become a vital organ. I think that's possible in the next decade. The second one is that the most important one is the biomaterial and the smart material, like the use
because I do a lot of study about the material, we can use maybe add some growth factor into the material, and then have some growth slow release to that the cell can produce their phenotype to their vital the phenotype. I think that's very important. This is the second one. And this third one, I think we can also use, because AI now is very popular. We can use the AI to precise, maybe can help us to that the therapy may be more precise for the patient. Like you maybe using the SSM, or you to modify the teacher engineer the SSM and to treat the enzymes to remove the plaque. I think that's not maybe possible. I think the future is recalled in my vision. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have a question for Dr. Xu. Dr. Xu is a food and medical surgeon here. I understand he and his colleague is so eager to have a regenerative medicine center in the Fuji Historic University Hospital. So can you tell us what is your plan?
I think because our schedule is a little bit late, first of all, I would to thank to the Dr. Zhang for the fantastic presentation and Professor Wang a great talk. We are now starting our new journey into the regenerative medicine here at Furen Hospital. So your insight will give a lot of help and very timely for us. The second, our faculty, Dr. Wang, will give a special lecture to give our regenerative center the future vision. And so definitely stay tuned for that. Thanks again.
Okay, I'd like to ask Dr. Gina Jiang last question. The first is, what is your suggestion to the two doctors here for their future regenerative medicine center?
So one thing is, I would assume this center will be clinically focused. So I think that is a key, because research focus and clinical focus is two ends. It's continuous, but it's two ends. So clinical focus, number one, is regulation will be the heavyweight in this. So number one will, if in Taiwan, have to understand TFDA's regulation on regenerative medicine use in clinical setting. I think that's number one. And two is, I think I didn't really talk much about what I did with sports medicine. For regenerative medicine, definitely includes mesenchymal stem cell. And mesenchymal stem cell, there's a lot of use in orthopedic and sports medicine application at the moment. And in the market, in the clinical trials, including in Hong Kong, including in our facility, there will be MSc for sports medicine application soon. So for that purpose, still, the number one thing from the making of the cell, the GMP, I know here we'll probably follow GTP, the good tissue practice, but that is still following the guideline of TFDA. And TFDA, one of the key gap to fill is this process, which you will be hearing a lot. It's called process development. How to bring laboratory research protocol to, clinical grades into GMP. It's very much like I said, 妈妈的厨房到鼎泰丰等级. How do you translate that from a home kitchen to a clinical kitchen that is quality assured, safe, and effective, and you'd be able to replicate that. So regulation is bottom line, and everything else goes from there.
Okay, it's a good suggestion for us. And how about the support from the institute and the money? How much money you need? I think it's a huge one.
Well, definitely, I think we should think about value that we will create. If we work on GMP, for sure the funding will be different and probably substantially more than a research grade. But we have to think more in terms of why we're doing this. Is because, one, we want to bring this treatment to the patient, as many patients in need as possible. So this number one is need to gain support from top down, from the support from the highest level of the university, highest level of the hospital, as well as, of course, government, because it's closely tied to regulation. So I think gaining the support from these top level, and of course the investors, beneficiaries, and government grant. I know Taiwan government also strongly support cell gene therapy as well as regenerative medicine. So seek out for big funding. Yeah.
So thank you for your excellent suggestion and experience for us. So let's go. Let's go to the regenerative. So thank you for the participation.
感谢各位学者专家给我们带来非常非常好的建议以及未来的方向。Thank you all. Please return to your seats. 我们今天上午的2026台湾运动健康与医学跨领域产业高峰论坛，在多场精彩的专题演讲，还有非常深入的高峰对谈当中，即将告一段落。The 2026 Taiwan Sports Health and Medicine Cross-Disciplinary Industry Summit Forum this morning is about to conclude with a series of very engaging
「各位亲爱的贵宾，各位媒体朋友们，大家午安，大家好，欢迎莅临辅大再生医学中心成立与国家运动科学中心合作签约记者会的现场。 我是今天的主持人洪素清。非常荣幸呢，能跟各位共同见证这个属于台湾运动医疗与科学整合的新纪元。今天我们在辅仁大学国喜楼要正式宣布再生医学中心的诞生，并且启动跟国家运科中心的深度战略合作。这场结合学术、临床以及顶尖运动表现的革新，在今天正式启动。今天我们非常荣幸邀请到多位重量级的贵宾，跟我们一起见证这重要的一刻。接下来，我将一一唱名，邀请我们的贵宾上台致辞。请贵宾听到您的名字之后，帮我移动您的脚步到舞台上方来，为我们今天这重要的一刻说说您的感想。首先，第一位我想邀请的是我们辅仁大学的大家长，是不是让我们用最热烈的掌声欢迎辅仁大学蓝一正校长为我们致辞？
次长，运动部黄球王 Michael 次长，还有我们今天的这个很重要的我们奥运的其中一位主角，我们这个陈全寿董事长那我们今天有陈志远学长今天好像是在开辅仁大学杰出校友会，因为今天我们在座的好多的杰出校友那 Charles Chen，we also have Dr. Daniel Wallen present today here, and we've got 我们的江清泉副院长，还有我们这个医学院的这个廖俊厚院长，那我们两位这个我们的国手黄义婷还有罗嘉玲，那我们还有在场的很多的贵宾朋友，大家午安，大家好。忘记介绍，还有一位杰出的校友是我们中华奥委会的副主席陈美燕副主席也是辅仁大学毕业的大家好。那今天非常高兴早上我们有这个Sports Health and Sports Medicine 的这个研讨会那我们这个国外的这个专家，还有国内的专家都来跟我们一起讨论未来在台湾的整个这个运动医学、运动科学方面的发展。那我们待会呢，我们启动这个辅仁大学附属医院的再生医学中心这是一个里程碑，再加上待会也要跟我们的国家运科中心做一个签约仪式呢。其实重要的就是说，除了在运动员的一个这个协助、支持跟永续的发展以外呢，全民运动我们强调的呢，在这个Healthy Taiwan， 就是我们整个健康台湾的一个框架下面呢，在这个预防医学方面是非常重要的。那因应运动部的成立呢，辅仁大学这边呢，今年也准备启动这个运动产业人才培育及研究中心。那这个研究中心呢，将是跟12个学院的特色，以运动为中心来做结合。那当然呢，我们跟医院，我们自己的医院合作，再对接到运动部，对接到我们中华奥委会，然后再对接到这个运科中心呢，我相信呢，未来呢是一个领先，让我们这个全民运动还有竞技运动呢，会更加蓬勃发展的一个契机。那今天呢，在此呢，欢迎各位来到辅仁大学，那也我们期待呢，我们在这个再生医学中心的一个启动，以及跟国家运科中心的一个合作呢，会有非常好，让这个整个这个运动的产业、运动的科学呢，提升到一个世界级的一个水准。那再次的感谢各位，祝福各位今年平安喜乐，谢谢。
谢谢校长的致辞，也谢谢辅大愿意在这个健康台湾的框架之下，不只以坚实的医学背景作为我们杰出运动的后盾，接下来在全民健康、全民运动框架之下发展运动产业。接下来呢，我们要邀请下一个致辞的贵宾，我要邀请的是运动部黄启煌政务次长为我们致辞，是不是请大家用最热烈的掌声欢迎我们的黄次长？
校长，I'm sorry, I did not need to give a speech. 很抱歉，我不知道今天要讲话。不过，首先还是很高兴能够回到我的母校，我也是辅仁大学毕业的。那很高兴今天这样的算是2个很重要的一个 occasions， 一个是我们再生医学中心的成立，另外一个是我们学校要跟我们运科中心签署合作。这件事情说起来我就有一点点闷了。为什么闷呢？因为我也曾经是运科中心的执行长。本来是我要跟辅仁大学签的，但是辅仁大学就说买了看板了，他要跟赵执行长签了，所以恭喜赵执行长这样的机会跟我们辅仁大学签这个合作的协议所以很高兴能够参加今天这样的活动，那也请代表运动部祝福在座的所有的贵宾，我们辅仁大学一切顺利平安，谢谢大家，谢谢。
谢谢市长，市长请先入座。反正承先启后，不管是在手上谁的手上，我们终究要签下这个合作。所以接下来，我们是不是用热烈的掌声欢迎我们国家运科中心的赵远宏执行长来为我们致辞？
校长还有次长，其实那个次长是我们的长官通常长官致辞之后呢，我们就不用再致辞了。对，当然非常荣幸来参加这个再生医学中心的成立，还有跟我们国家运科中心的签约合作。我想，不管是辅大，或者是辅大医院，或者是运动医学中心、再生医学中心，原则上跟我们运科中心的发展方向呢都非常的一致。那当然。我想我不要讲太长，就是希望将来2个机关呢能够强联手，我们一起为我们的选手、为我们的全民来做努力。谢谢大家。
谢谢执行长，请先入座，也期待未来的强联手接下来我要邀请的致辞贵宾是来自于中华奥会的陈美燕副主席，是不是请大家用最热烈的掌声欢迎我们的陈美燕副主席？好的，我们副座呢非常的客气，他说他不致辞，他直接入座。好的，那既然他都这么说了，那我们就接下来我邀请下一位致辞贵宾了。接下来我要欢迎的这一位呢是我们的陈全寿董事长，是不是请我们用热烈的掌声欢迎我们中华运动进道防治基金会陈全寿董事长为我们致辞？
蓝校长还有各位贵宾非常高兴我今天能够来参加这个盛会的。那我是从台中赶过来的，那我已经快90岁了，不大这个常常大清早跑远路，除了打高尔夫球之外但是呢我的基金会15个董事长当中就有2位是辅仁大学的老师了一个是黄家宏董事，还有李义清教授，所以我那个基金会辅仁大学给我很多帮忙，我身边的很多好朋友，包括学生也都是辅仁大学，所以我今天能够站在这里跟大家见面，又看到运动科学中心再生医学的这个合作签约特别感觉到高兴，因为我自己是奥林匹克的选手。我上奥林匹克1968，所以对于台湾运动的发展，我特别关心的祝大家健康，然后辅仁大学运动医学中心还有再生医学能够未来为台湾贡献，谢谢各位。
谢谢陈全寿董事长的致辞，董事长请先入座。紧接着我要先邀请下一位我们致辞的嘉宾，邀请的是永源基金会陈志源董事长为我们致辞，是不是请大家用最热烈的掌声欢迎陈志源董事长？
我们今天的主人校长还有我们各位贵宾、各位长官，我想不光市长不知道，我也不知道我今天要上来致辞。但是我也是辅仁大学校友， 我们学生的时候也很习惯被抽考，那抽考就上了。我昨天才从日本回来，那这个活动我知道很久了，然后他们一定要我参加，好嘛，那就参加，因为我非常喜欢运动，我又是辅大的，然后我大概什么运动都玩啊，这个我们10项运动的这个前辈在这里，可是我是很多项，没有到10项，那我羽球、滑雪、跑步、重训、游泳、自行车、高尔夫球，然后瑜伽，然后以前还练过一点点武术。可是我以前就常觉得，我自己也喜欢运动啊，那我也常常赞助也很多选手去，包括周天成啊、林俊逸，很多各种不一样的选手运动。那我更亲身见证，其实台湾有几个世界纪录，可能大家不一定知道。一个是大家已经知道的老顽童，104岁，他105岁还在打羽毛球，他是我的球友，我跟他打过30年，打了30年的羽球。那另外一个是我的朋友的爷爷，我同学的爷爷，这个世界纪录是很少人知道，114岁还在打高尔夫球。但是我常在想，105岁还能打羽球，114岁还在打高尔夫球，这个是台湾话叫天公啊囝了，就是老天赐予的。那其他要怎么办？我们就要靠运动医学、再生医学，然后生物研究，然后跟很好的医师、跟很好的训练团队，然后才能够让我们有这么健康的身体啊。那我们不但要活得久，还要有健康的余命。所以我觉得这是非常重要的啊。那我也看过很多顶尖的选手，因为受伤或因为这个某些状况，他不如预期，只好黯然离开这个体坛。所以我非常开心能够看到这种这么好的一个机会的成立。那我也很在这里也尽我的一点点小小的力量。像普大有好几个医生是我送他们到美国最好的骨科医院。那个 Hospital for Special Surgery， 那我这个月底也想想办法，然后已经联络上，也帮我们运动再生医学中心的王俊亮执行长去 Berkeley 一次拜访3个教授，所以我希望大家一起努力，让我们所有的人，不光只有选手在台上发光，但是全民都更加健康快乐。谢谢。
谢谢陈志源董事长，请入座。接下来呢，我要邀请我们最后一位致辞嘉宾，也是我们辅大医院的江清泉副院长为我们致辞，是不是请大家用最热烈的掌声欢迎江清泉副院长？
蓝校长，各位贵宾，大家午安。
午安。
I have a dream。9年前我从台大退休台大教授退休来这边。I came here after retire from National Taiwan University。那时候成立骨科部，以后接着第2年成立运动医学中心，我们就有一个梦想 ，I have a dream， 让这个运动医学中心成为世界级的运动中心。从早上到现在，大家看到，我们要照顾一个人的健康，一个运动的健康，绝对不是只有骨科医师在台上帮病人治疗，还有运动科学，还有各个领域 PT、AT， 还有更重要政府的资源，更重要企业界的资源。我们今天呢，这个会把所有的资源都弄在一起的，所以我相信还不止这样，我们有国外连结最重要的国外连结，第一个是 New York Hospital for Special Surgery， 我本身是那边training2年，后来在陈振远学长的帮忙下，我们有3位去那边training回来。那我们陆陆续续会让我们年轻的一些主治医师或者是优秀的到国外进修。那 I'm so happy to have a chance to talk to Professor Daniel Whelan last night. So we will be collaborate together in the future to have a fellow exchange program. 所以这表示我们不但是国内整个整合，而且跟国际连接。所以 我对这个签约式是抱满了很多的希望，让我们的梦想很快就会实现。谢谢。
谢谢江副院长的致辞，请入座。好，紧接着在7位贵宾精彩的致辞之后呢，在我们正式揭开再生医学中心的新篇章之前，他原本要亲自莅临，在国际运动医学界享有崇高地位的大师，他也为我们送来了跨海的祝福。这一位是美国运动医学权威 Dr. Rodeo， 他特别呢为了我们今天的成立典礼录制了一段影片。接下来呢，我要邀请我们的在场的贵宾，帮我将您的目光看向我们前方的大荧幕，让我们一起来看看这一段来自远方的祝福。
Hello everyone, I'm Scott Rodeo from Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. I'm honored to make some introductory remarks at the opening of the Taiwan Sports Health and Medicine Summit at Fujian Catholic University. I've had the pleasure and the honor to meet and work with 3 Catholic medicine scientists from your institution, Dr. Jia Hung, Ping Cheng Ye, and Sung-Lin Lee. I've been very impressed with your dedication to advancing sports medicine in Taiwan. It's a true pleasure to welcome your very distinguished colleagues, including the Vice Minister of Sports, along with leaders of the Taiwan Institute of Sports Science, the Chinese Taipei Olympic Committee, the Taiwan Society for Regenerative Medicine, the Taiwan Sports Physical Therapy Association, the Taiwan Athletic Training Society, the Chinese Taipei Taekwondo leaders. I'm impressed and excited by your plans for a comprehensive regenerative medicine program. As we all know, the application of biologic therapies, including treatments such as platelet plasma, stem cells, therapy approaches, and exosomes, to name just a few examples, have tremendous potential in orthopedic sports medicine. However, this field needs continued rigorous research to advance our understanding of these emerging therapies. I encourage you to develop both the clinical and the laboratory-based research programs in this area. Ultimately, a translational research focus using novel and innovative discoveries from the laboratory to our patients will allow us to make progress in this area of regenerative medicine. I'm highly confident that your vision for your Center for Regenerative Medicine at Fujian Catholic University will fulfill this goal. As we carry on a similar clinical and research program at Hospital for Special Surgery here in New York City, I really look forward to the chance to establish collaborative programs with you and your institutions. I wish you all the best for a fantastic meeting. Thank you.
谢谢，感谢 Dr. Rodeo 从远方捎来的肯定与祝福。我也相信我们今天的新起点是未来所有的卓越的开始。接下来呢，我们将进行再生医学中心的成立仪式。我要请我们的舞台助理将我们仪式要用的5根感应光柱定位。定位之后呢，我接下来将一一唱名我们参与这个启动仪式的贵宾。贵宾听到你的名字之后呢，请帮我移动您的脚步到我们仪式用的感应光柱前方。好的，现在仪式用的感应光柱已经就定位了。接下来我要邀请启动仪式的代表，首先邀请我们辅仁大学的蓝义正校长，请移动您的脚步到我们的光柱前方。接下来我要邀请我们辅大医院的江清泉副院长。接下来我要邀请我们的陈志远董事长。紧接着我要邀请我们2位在台下的辅大医院的代表一起上台来参与这个启动仪式。首先邀请辅大医学院的廖俊厚院长。紧接着我要邀请辅仁大学的洪正浩副校长。接下来在5位贵宾就定位之后呢，我们就要进行启动仪式了。待会进行启动仪式的时候呢，我要邀请我们5位贵宾，在我喊3、2、1之后呢，将您的手掌盖在我们的感应区上，一起启动我们的光柱，象征我们新里程的开始。好的，如果贵宾已经准备好了，是不是我们摄影师也请帮我准备好？我们接下来捕捉这历史性的一刻。好，请大家跟我一起倒数3、2、1，请启动。好的，恭喜我们辅大再生医学中心正式挂牌成立。我们请我们的摄影师们帮忙捕捉这精彩的一刻。这是我们运动医学迈向新篇章的开始，也不只是竞技运动，也包括全民运动的强大后盾。好，请帮我看向左边的这位摄影师。好，左边。好，接下来请帮我看向右边的摄影师。好的，请帮我看向前方，帮我按个赞。好，请帮我竖起您的大拇指，为我们按个赞。好，请帮我看向左边的摄影师。好的，看向右边的摄影师。 好的，是不是大家都有跟我说到您需要的画面了呢？如果有的话，那谢谢。好，我们的启动仪式在这边先告一个段落。我要先请我们的廖院长还有洪副校长先请回到座位来。紧接着呢，我们刚刚已经见证了辅大医学量能的升级。那我们知道，这份专业更需要跟国家级的战略体系对接，才能发挥最强大的影响力哦。所以紧接着我们要进行的是签约合作的仪式。我要先邀请我们的江副院长还有陈董事长，先移动您的脚步到我们下一个合作仪式的定位。首先，请我们的江副院长帮我移动到您的左手边第一个灯柱，陈董事长帮我移动到左手边第二个灯柱。好，接下来我要邀请国家运科中心的签署合作代表，我们的赵远宏执行长帮我移动您的脚步到我们的仪式台前。接下来我要邀请我们的3位见证人也一起移动到我们的仪式台，邀请我们的黄楚煌次长，邀请中华奥会的陈美燕副主席，邀请我们的陈全寿董事长。好，贵宾都已经就定位之后呢，我要请我们工作人员帮我送上我们签署用的笔。好，请工作人员帮我将我们待会合作签约仪式以及见证的用笔交给我们台上见证以及签署代表。那所有的贵宾都已经拿到笔之后呢，一样，我喊3、2、1之后呢，待会在签名板上签下您的大名，代表我们合作的启动，也代表您见证我们这一次的合作开始。好，准备好了吗？准备好了，3、2、1，请签署。好，这次签署完呢，代表我们辅仁大学跟国家运动科学中心的正式合作开始。我们在4位重量级的贵宾见证之下，启动我们运动科学跟再生医学的全面整合，也让我们的研究、临床以及国家竞技运动再次结合，再次升级。好，请帮我看向前方的摄影师。好，请贵宾帮我看向左方的摄影师。请贵宾帮我看向右方的摄影师，请贵宾再帮我看向中间，可以帮我一起比个赞吗？好的，是不是所有的媒体朋友们都已经拍到您需要的画面了呢？如果都有拍到您需要的画面的话，那谢谢各位贵宾。7位贵宾，请帮我移动您的脚步回到我们舞台下方的座位区。我们接下来呢要进入我们今天的下一个演讲。首先呢，这个阶段我们合作仪式还有我们的启动仪式都已经完成了，我们正式进入了我们再生医学、运动医学的新篇章。那到底我们再生医学中心成立之后，我们有什么样的目标？我们的宗旨是什么？我们希望能达成什么呢？接下来这一段，我要邀请到的是我们辅大医院的王俊亮医师，他要跟我们分享再生医学中心成立的宗旨。是不是请大家用最热烈的掌声欢迎王俊亮医师？
校长、各位嘉宾，非常荣幸跟大家分享我们再生医学中心成立的宗旨。那在学校支持底下，我们终于可以成立这个再生医学中心。那其实也是受限于台湾的这个法规的帮忙，那我觉得我们在一个很好的时机点，然后成立。但就像我们今天的早上听的演讲一样，就是说这个成立的宗旨其实主要就是说，当然我们有这些细胞治疗很先进的这些，比如说刚才说的 PRP， 或者是说外泌体的治疗，但是其实病人也有时候也会缺乏一些证据嘛，所以在医院这一端的话，就是说除了这个政府已经通过这些特许的细胞治疗之外，那对于台湾有很多正在发展中的这些 CDMO 的公司，当他们推动这些产品进到这个医院之后，那医院端这边当然除了就是配合这些临床试验，就最重要的其实就是跟收集病人的需求，提供证据，然后帮他们建立最好的这个每一个治疗最好的适应症、最好的配方。那未来我们也希望借由我们合作底下，把这样的东西能够跟这些台湾的这些 CDMO 公司，或者国际的 CDMO 公司，这些细胞治疗的公司能够建立一个更好的连接，是一个 win-win 的 situation。我想这个是我们主要的3个目标，所以我们当然就是希望能够在医院能够建立一个 GDP 的实验室，然后跟这些 biotech 这些合作伙伴，然后变成一个催化剂，变成一个最终可以带来最好对我们的病患可以来到最好的这个最大的优势跟好处。 那当然，我们这里面 GTP 的实验室里面，大概就是会有这些工作组成嘛，就是会有这些实验室的人员。但其实最重要的是跟 biotech company 给他们在医院能够有一个去合理工作的环境，然后我们可以去监控、去评管，然后确定它的治疗的疗效，然后根据我们的临床使用上去把它带到这个病人身上去，然后提供他们最好的治疗。好，那目前来讲，其实符合法规标准的台湾目前有6种细胞治疗。那比如说跟骨科跟再生医学比较相关的，比如说像这种脂肪来源的这种间质干细胞，或者是说像母纤维母细胞，或者是像骨髓来源的这个间质干细胞，或者是软骨细胞，这些主要都是我们在骨科里面都有可能会用到的适应症。那当然，对于更多的，比如说像癌症的病患，比如说像我们今天早上听到的 CAR-T 的 therapy， 或者是 NK cell 的 therapy， 这也都是属于我们的未来合作的这个目标之一。那其实就像我们刚刚讲的，就是说在右侧这6项疗法是政府已经特许方法，就是说我们如果主管机关通过之后，我们可以对病人实行这些治疗。不过我们要去追踪，要去追踪这些病人是不是真的得到他真正的疗效。还有是不是有产生一些副作用？毕竟这些东西在临床上证据还很有限。那我们如何提供病患在医院得到一个合适的治疗之外，也要确认它是安全无虞。那另外对一些比较新兴的治疗，比如说像是异体的细胞治疗，或者是外泌体，或者是说一些其他的基因编辑的治疗，这些的治疗的话，那它当然它进到临床试验来，第一临床试验1、临床试验2，未来政府或许会给特许的这个适应症。那我们怎么样去提供一样是一个监督的环境，去筛选适合的病人，给予适当的治疗，一样去监控它的疗效，以及会发生一些额外的副作用。那希望能够为我们整个台湾目前未来生技界要走的这个发展的方向，能够得到一个被监控、被合理的处理的一个环境。那很高兴，我的再生治疗细胞就是江清泉教授，就我们的江副。那他之前经历了20年去发展他的再生治疗商品。那这里面提供了我很多养分，然后要来让我们可以去进一步的去发展我想要做的事情。那当然在学校的支持底下，医院的支持底下，我们这只是一个不是只有我一个人，这是上海筹划。未来我会带入更多的团队。那目前现在有团队，比如说洪教医师，他在运动医学已经非常的用心，大家都可以看得出来。所以他在这医学，他也是一直鼓吹我们要把这些东西更有品质化的来监控带到病人身上来。那当然，这个海云就是一直都是我们坚持的后盾。那下面这个谢凯是他目前是University Exeter 是我之前的合作伙伴，然后江生标是那个University of South Wales， 他们俩都是我之前实验室的伙伴，我之前跟他们建立联络，未来他们也会跟我们就是做一些跨国的一些合作，希望我们可以，因为他们各国的法规并没有那么的像台湾这么的友善，所以其实他们很难去做到这些治疗，所以他们非常有兴趣。那未来我们也会建立一些跨国，那希望把这个辅大医院可以带到国际上，增加能见度。对，那策略方案上，我想第一阶段我们当然就是临床培育啊，到去地点啊，慢慢的把我们的台湾的各项法规把它弄懂，然后把这个区域实验室建立起来，然后把特许办法这些治疗带进来。第二个阶段当然就是跟这些生技公司手把手的，我们把一些临床试验的步骤啊、适应症啊建立起来。然后来招呼这个病人，然后慢慢的帮助这些生化生技公司可以得到临时的药证，然后慢慢确立这个治疗的真正治疗的适应的 protocol， 然后来加惠更多的病人。那第三个当然就是希望我们的学校、医院未来可能还有转，比如说跟生技公司合作的转研发的这种在地的一个创的一个生技公司，也能够进一步的产生出来，然后可以将整个生态链做大。为我们的这个台湾甚至走到世界这样子，好，所以简单来讲，未来最后，我们希望这个再生医学中心不只是以台湾为基础，未来有机会可以走到整个世界去。那当然包含我自己以前训练的，包含 Imperial College 当年讲，或牛津大学的老板在地，还有包含那个程序员农场，今天叫我们去 UC Berkeley 建立一些 collaboration， 所以我会一直把我们的 protocol 建立起来，未来也希望把这个东西能够到全世界去做连接。今天就是跟大家分享一下这个再生医学中心的宗旨，谢谢大家。
谢谢王俊亮医师的分享，也期待从辅大开始，可以将我们这样的一个生态系这样的一个产业建立起来，连接全球哦。那接下来呢，除了我们临床还有研究之外，很重要的这个怎么样跟国家级的中心链接，怎么样升阶它呢？接下来我要邀请到是国家运科中心的赵元宏执行长，邀请他谈谈国家运科中心跟辅仁大学跨域合作的意义。是请大家用最热烈的掌声欢迎赵元宏执行长。
校长，还有在座各位长官先进，还有大家好哦。那个魏董事长我们国家运科中心魏董事长上任以后，然后接续我上任，那我们一直有一个想法，就是说把这个运动科学的这个治理呢提升到下一个层次，也就是说我们在推展运动科学的过程当中，不单单只是在运动科学这个层面。那我们希望说，我们国家在运动科学方面能够达到另外一个治理的程度，因为我们希望让这个运动科学能够进入到国家的竞争力，能够让它提升。那这个部分里面就会看到几个，一个是在政策面上需要做一些相关支持跟调整，然后再从治理的角度，我们会很在意在运动科学的落地，还有运动科技的开发。还有运动数据的建立，以及其他相关的人才的培育，就整个让它变成一个 ecosystem。那这样子再回头来看，我们在国家运科中心它的角色是什么？我们定位国家运科中心其实是一个平台，也就是说，我们让各个运动科学能够在国家运科中心这个平台去落地，包含什么？包含我们希望串接上游的大学的资源。医院的资源，然后能够应用到下游。那下游当然是我们最重要的运动员，还有我们的一些包含基层，包含所有的全民的运动。所以以这个请我来讲这个今天签约的这个意涵，其实它相当重要哈。也就是说国家运科中心跟辅大的签约，它其实包含3个层次。以辅仁大学来说，它有非常好的一个体育科研，还有体育实作。那在辅大医院的部分呢，它有很坚强的一个医疗团队。那当然包含所谓的运动医学中心，以及今天成立的一个再生医学中心。我想，因为我自己也做也蛮长一段时间在从事这种再生医学相关的一些研究跟教学哈。今天早上我还在阳明交大上这个组织工程跟再生医学这一门课，也上了快20年的时间。所以在这个领域，其实我们投入相当的深，也很理解说在这个领域能够为我们运动员，还有为我们一般的民众，能够在健康以及组织的功能的恢复上，能够达到一个什么样的一个贡献？好，那另外一个层次就是在运动科学中心这里。我刚才已经说过，运动科学中心它是一个平台，我们希望让这几个包含学校的资源、包含医院的资源，能够在我们这个平台上呢，都能够串接，然后运作协调的很好。那当然目的是能够希望刚刚讲能够落地在我们竞技运动的提升，还有包含我们在学校的运动员的照顾，以及基层运动员的相关的一些包含运动表现，还有身体的照顾等等。那当然希望接续的以我们国家政策来说，我们希望扩展到全民运动的一个相关的应用。所以如果以我们今天合作来说，我们可以在接下来推展在健康运动员健康照顾的面向来说，特别是我们希望在运动员的这个伤害的预防，那甚至风险的管理健康的照顾。那另外一端就是很重要的是在健康相关的这些数据因为我们国家运科中心在这个阶段，因为在推动所谓的数据驱动决策的这个阶段，我们目前是成立一个国家运动数据平台。我们希望相关的一些数据呢，能够陆续的收集在这个平台或串接在这个平台。将来大家会做后续在决策应用端，不管是 AI 的边缘运算等等这些都可以做相关的应用。我相信国家运科中心跟辅大这边呢， 后续会有一个很深入、很深化的一个合作。那其实那个洪医师还有那个叶医师，还有那个玉仁老师呢，都是跟我很好的朋友，我也是很久的一个朋友。那所以我相信我们未来在这个领域都可以有一个很好的合作。好，谢谢。
谢谢赵执行长的说明。所以呢，当这个资源就绪，当科技可以作为后备的话，这个时候最终的受惠者其实就是在赛场上拼战不懈的运动员呢，在追求卓越之际呢，更有实证，更有安全的后盾。那接下来呢，刚刚我们讲了这么多硬核的科学数据或我们即将要做的事情呢，我们想把它转化成真实的生命故事。所以呢，在邀请选手上台做座谈之前呢，我们想要先向一位体坛的前辈致敬。他有提到，他在1968年参加墨西哥奥运，他是我们当年的国手，他也是台湾第一位拥有医学博士背景的运动科学之父。接下来是不是让我们一起透过这段影片，向陈全寿董事长致上我们的敬意？请大家将您的目光投向大荧幕，让我们一起来向陈董事长致敬。
从小，陈全寿就是个文武双全的风云人物，经老师提拔，开始在田径场上崭露头角，成为我国知名的铁人选手。也因为左膝和手臂受伤，转而到日本全心攻读运动生理领域。1994年，国立体院成立教练研究所，邀请陈全寿回国担任所长。2003年，获行政院体委会颁发终身成就奖。2004年，接下体委会主委的重担，在他的带领下，我国拿下第1面奥运金牌，在亚奥运等国际赛事皆有亮眼的成绩。
很不简单呢，尤其我们看到他不只是当年非常好，成绩很好，还带领我们的选手们拿到金牌。更重要的是，他现在看起来完全没有快要90岁的样子啊！所以我们会发现，原来运动真的是不只能追求卓越，更是我们健康很重要的基础哦。所以接下来这一段呢，我们要用一个小小的座谈的方式，跟我们跨世代的杰出运动员聊一聊。当我们的竞技运动，当我们追求卓越，有这些相关的资源，跟我们的临床，还有我们的研究实证，对他们来讲代表什么样的意义哦？所以接下来呢，我要开始邀请我们的选手们上台。首先，是不是让我们用最热烈的掌声欢迎陈全胜董事长？紧接着呢，我要邀请一样是在我们的国际舞台上发光发热，我们当代运科实力很重要的表现的奥运国手，欢迎我们的划船田姐儿黄义婷选手。紧接着欢迎我们的跆拳道甜心，我们的罗嘉玲选手。好，请入座。首先要感谢3位在国际上让大家可以看到台湾，谢谢你们精彩的表现哦。那接下来我们这一段，我们想短短来谈一谈，就是在你们看来，这些科技医疗的联手可以为你们创造什么样的协助，或者你们对这样的有什么样的期许哦？第一个问题，我想请教陈董事长，您是台湾少数同时具备奥运选手的医学博士背景的代表人物嘛？那当年应该是资源相对有限哈，所以你们在训练的时候多半是经验跟意志力在支撑嘛。因为我小时候也是田径选手，我们那个时候都是什么跑的时候拉那个像那个轮胎在后面跑之类的，都土法炼钢嘛。我不知道你们那个时候是不是也是哈？那您看着走过那个年代，再看到现在这个再生医学跟运动科学进步，可以从主动预防啊、性能优化，你怎么看这样的转变？
谢谢。我那个年代是60几年前嘛，所以那个时候我们共同计划就是说土法炼钢了。我不知道土法是不是可以炼钢哦，当然应该是可以，但是效率非常不好。那我在日本生活了28年，那段时间是让我接触到很多所谓运动科学这样的知识了，也因为如此，回来之后呢，我都大力的这个推展运动科学。那我们就希望说，不要土法炼钢，就是用比较客观的方法， 找出一些数据，然后用另外一只眼，就是科学的眼，来观看选手的大家的动作，然后是身体情况等等变化。那实际上我们就从身体、生理、技战术去分析选手的运动表现了。那就是这样，从土法炼钢到带入科学，这个很漫长的路程里头，大概是这个样子。
理解，走过那个年代，可能锻炼的效率全靠自己的毅力。到现在，我们科学的方式来分析，协助我们的选手走向卓越哦，真的是完全不一样的年代。接下来这一题呢，我想请教我们议婷哦，你是横跨2届奥运的国手，长期要维持这种高强度竞技状态，其实真的很不容易哦。所以在这样的职业历程中哦，你会怎么样期待再生医学跟运动科学的结合，可以帮助你们这样的选手维持甚至突破巅峰？
对我来说，因为我其实也从事划船20年之久，那以我的
你小学就开始划就对了？
没有，我高中才开始划，但是我国小、国中到大学到现在都还在当选手啦，只是去年刚比完，就是全国运动会都有休息大概半年。那说真的，在回来赛场的这段路是过程蛮辛苦的，因为我应该有1年多没有运动。对，然后再回到巅峰，我觉得这段路就是其实也受了很多伤。那我觉得对选手来说，最害怕不是输，而是就是没办法在站上这个场上去拼搏这样。那我觉得就是如果之后有更完整的数据分析，或者是修复的机制，然后甚至是细胞的一些层级的修复技术的话，我觉得可以让我们就是延长我们的巅峰，然后甚至再创第2个高峰。所以我也蛮期待，就是在未来我们的训练可以不只是靠经验，然后甚至可以结合科技，然后科学，然后让每一次的调整都可以更精准。也很期待，就是让我们在上场上可以更有底气的，对。
理解，真的就很像我们刚才陈志远大学长提到，就是说100多岁还能打羽球或者打高尔夫球，那有些人是体恐啊，可是，在科技的帮忙之下，有机会让你们延长你们的选手生命，甚至突破你们的这个瓶颈，再创高峰哦。好，这也是你们所期许。那接下来呢，我想要问一下嘉玲，因为嘉玲，我印象中呢，你正处在运动生涯最关键的黄金期啊，同时也曾经面对这个伤势的挑战。那在这样的过程当中，你怎么样看待这场从实验室走向运动场的医疗革命？你觉得这个对你重返巅峰会有什么样的帮助？
我觉得对我来说最大的改变可能就是对自身的安全感吧。因为可能以前受伤的时候，我们可能就会担心说，自己的伤会不会是没有完全复原，或者是会不会还有一些可能后遗症这样子。但是就是像我这次的刀也是在辅大医院开的，所以其实很感谢辅大医院对我的支持。所以其实，在这些治疗过程当中，然后不管是一些科学的检测，或者是医疗团队的帮助，其实都可以帮助我们这些运动员，可能会不只是复原而已，不只是恢复，可以让我们在回到场上的时候有更好的表现，然后可以更相信自己的所有的努力，然后还有大家的帮助这样。对，
谢谢。所以，我们这些临床医疗的精进，我们再生医学的发达，对于我们选手来讲，就是更强大的底气，让他们虽然不希望受伤，但如果真的不小心受伤的时候，有机会恢复的到完全的样态，再次挑战极限。好，那接下来这一题呢，我想请3位哦，好，你们想一想，就是他们事先有没有跟你们讲哈？还是我们又临时抽考？如果是抽考，我就很抱歉了哈。接下来就是我要请3位用一句话期许未来哈。我们是不是倒着过来？我先从嘉玲开始好了，给我们一句话，你对于不管是运动、再生医学，或对这相关你的或你对自我的期许都可以。
我希望就是有这些精准的医疗呢，可以更加成为我们所有人的后盾。
好的，希望我们这些精准医疗可以成为我们所有人的后盾。接下来，议婷您呢？
就是用科学累积实力，再创属于自己的巅峰。
用科学累积实力，再创自我的巅峰，非常棒。接下来，董事长您的期许呢？
挑战未来，创造奇迹。
挑战未来，创造奇迹，是不是可以让我们台湾再次在国际台发光发热？好，让我们挑战未来，再创奇迹哦！非常谢谢3位精彩的分享，谢谢您。那是不是请3位帮我起身，然后往前站，我们来拍一张合照？是我们大会摄影师是不是已经准备好了呢？好的，那请帮我捕捉这难得一刻哦，我们跨世代的在台湾最杰出的运动员，他们在这里跟我们表达他们对未来的期许。我们也期待这一场从研究、临床到国家科学中心的结合，可以成为他们的底气，成为他们的后盾，带领台湾挑战奇迹。好，请看到前方的摄影师。好，3、2、1之后，帮我露出您最灿烂的笑容。好，3、2、1。好的，我们有点严肃哦。来，我们的运动员们，给我一点点动作或表情，喜欢怎么样的？好，表现出你们的 power。好，来，3、2、1。好，有看到满满的能量跟能力吗？我们也期许我们医学、我们的运动科学跟我们这些杰出选手的结合，再次挑战，再次卓越。那接下来，请留步，我要邀请我们今天呢，贵宾们也一起上台来跟我们参与合影。校长，然后我们的江副院长，好，还有我们的不行，我来看一下哈，因为有些贵宾好像离席。好，我们的次长好像是离席，对不对？好，然后我们的赵执行长。还有我们的副校长跟院长要不要一起来？还有校友会会长，我们一起来。
I'd like to invite Professor Where come with us.
Welcome to join us with photo.好，邀请我们的运医中心的执行长洪医师在吗？来，一起上来。好，因为那个位置的关系，我们大家更紧密一点，然后形成一个小小的 V， 我们看起来会更漂亮。好的。好，请帮我看向前方的摄影师，3、2、1之后，露出您最灿烂的笑容 ，Smile， 3、2、1，OK。好，来 ，thumbs up。好，让我们一起团结携手前行，让我们这个研究、临床以及国家科学中心的结合，成为我们台湾重创奇迹的新里程碑，也是起点。好的，好，大家都有拍到需要的画面了吗？好的，谢谢大家。那我们今天的活动在这边告一个段落，贵宾可以先行回座，谢谢。好的，那我们这一次呢，圆满结束之后，接下来是媒体联访时间。那我们厅外也备有相关的茶点，欢迎大家享用。紧接着呢，我们要邀请贵宾一起来参观我们的运医中心，所以待会呢，可以请贵宾跟着我们工作人员的脚步，一起去参观我们的运医中心。媒体朋友们，如果感兴趣，想要知道运医中心的进行方式，以及我们未来的发展方向，还有我们有什么样的设备器材可以协助这些选手呢？可以欢迎跟我们工作人员的脚步一起参观我们的运医中心。好，那我们今天的记者会在这边告一个段落，也祝大家有美好的一天，谢谢大家，谢谢。